Artemisia abruptly wakes Liz from a long dream, demanding to know how long she plans to sleep. Liz winces in pain and stammers out a quick apology for nodding off. Artemisia immediately pivots to asking about the small magic tool she had requested. Liz explains that she followed instructions before dozing off. Artemisia sharply checks if it was properly made, causing Liz to hesitate. Liz nervously confesses that she made a tiny mistake with the tool. She insists it was only a small flaw as Artemisia reacts violently. Liz coughs painfully from the sudden blow. Artemisia glares down at her and asks if she truly understands her situation. Artemisia warns that without a wealthy marriage, their family will end up destitute on the streets. Liz groans quietly in response. Liz apologizes profusely with tears in her eyes, promising to do much better next time. Artemisia prepares to leave the workshop. Artemisia sighs and orders Liz to practice until the tool is flawless before she returns. Liz meekly obeys her command. Liz reminds herself bitterly that this harsh life is her actual reality. A grand castle towers over the kingdom. A hand gently inspects a glowing magic tool. Artemisia smiles politely, taking credit for being such an extraordinary maker. Artemisia presents herself before high society. First Prince Albert suggests she could become queen, but Artemisia humbly plays down her status as a simple shopkeeper's daughter. Albert counters that her royal lineage and magical skill could lead their kingdom to world prominence. Albert notes that her grandmother was a former princess. Artemisia acts surprised that the prince investigated her background so thoroughly. He then proposes to her directly, asking her to be his wife. He gently takes her hand in a romantic gesture. Artemisia gazes back at him with surprise and emotion. She hesitates to answer, but Albert affectionately addresses her as his moon. Albert notes that her magic tool was not crafted entirely by her alone. He points out traces of someone else's magic mark on it. Since her shop is family-run, he understands multiple members contribute. It only makes sense that different relatives helped build it. Albert acknowledges her primary role, explaining he must convince his father before they marry. To win approval, he asks for a masterpiece crafted entirely by her hands. Artemisia readily agrees to his condition. She looks up at Prince Albert attentively. She eagerly asks what kind of item she should make next. Artemisia inspects the newly received request details. Artemisia demands that Liz handle the prince's order. She checks if Liz understands her command. Liz meekly consents. Artemisia orders her to make the final work look completely like her own. Liz remembers her expert grandmother training her, specializing in magic tool forging. Despite her skills, replicating magic crests perfectly is something she has never managed to achieve. Liz slumps over her workbench in despair. Magic marks form unique personal patterns whenever magic is cast. Liz admitted to taking the job solely out of fear of physical punishment. Matching someone else's magic mark remains virtually impossible for any artisan. She previously barely achieved 80% similarity. Liz examines the magic detection blueprint on paper. She suspects Albert uses a detector to measure residual magic percentages on tools. Liz panics wildly over the absurd difficulty of the request. The item requires intricate decorations clearly identifying ownership. Liz gasps in shock at the custom pommel order from Albert. The design mandates the royal white falcon used in falconry exclusive to the prince. It features red agate gemstones inlaid in the pommel. Royal tradition demands these signature gold and red colors. The pommel requires a complex magical function, which overwhelms Liz completely. Proper execution will take her at least 3 full months. She knows she must complete the work, fearing what will happen if she fails. She dreads repeating past mistakes. Determined, she pushes herself to craft it. Weighed down by shop preparation duties, she decides to begin with spinning magic thread. Liz activates multi-threading magic for spinning. She boosts her speed 20-fold to save time. Calculating the thread-ready time, Liz plans the weaving and dyeing steps. She wonders about the precise meters and colors needed. Hurry is essential if she wants to finish everything. Her mother suddenly yells out her name, interrupting her thoughts. Her mother berates her for ignoring calls, calling her cheeky. Liz apologizes, explaining she was deeply focused. Her mother demands the requested items, which Liz hands over promptly. She is instructed to bring them next time without being asked. Her mother insults her usefulness before noticing something unexpected. Her mother asks about the prince's request and tells her to do it properly. Liz weakly mentions how difficult it is. Her mother scolds her for complaining, pointing out the reward of a carefree life if successful. She orders Liz to work as if her life depends on it, and Liz complies. Her mother reinforces her harsh stance. Liz despairs as her mother restricts her diet to bread and water until finished. Her mother demands hard work in exchange for decent food. Liz cries out in despair at the punishment. Exhausted and hungry, Liz shifts her focus to analyzing the prince's request after completing her shop chores. She prepares her engraving tools in the workshop. She works carefully under the dim light. While she excels at accessory design, she notes that a fundamental problem remains. She explains that engraving requires synchronizing her magic wavelength perfectly with Artemisia's. Frustrated by the difficulty, Liz lets out a loud groan. Slumping over her desk, Liz despairs that copying a magic mark perfectly feels impossible. Although the physical shape is accurate, the magic crest pattern only matches 95%. Too much practice time has been wasted, leaving her unable to focus on the prince's request. Liz cries out that Artemisia takes all her earnings, keeping their family finances constantly drained. A vast sum of money is required to elevate Artemisia into nobility for the prince. Despite the cost, Liz recognizes how critical this financial push is. Liz reasons that if Artemisia gains higher status, her own life will become easy. Sighing softly, she gathers her resolve to succeed. Liz vividly visualizes a life blessed with endless fresh bread. She dreams of replacing sour black bran bread with warm white bread and butter. A wonderful life awaits if she overcomes this trial. Determined to taste decent food, Liz charges forward with renewed energy. Liz pauses as the magic tool glows in her hand. She achieves a 100% perfect match on the crest. Overjoyed, she shouts out loud in celebration. Liz sighs with relief, finally feeling free from the exhausting grind. She admits she was nearly dying of hunger and fatigue. Outside, the quiet workshop rests under the night sky. Artemisia inspects the completed item and approves of the perfect craftsmanship. Artemisia turns the magical accessory in her hands. Liz watches closely, waiting for her reaction. Artemisia confirms that the magic pattern matches hers completely. She vows to stay cautious and prepared. Starving, Liz timidly asks if there are any snacks available. Artemisia flatly replies that she avoids snacks to protect her figure. Ruining her physique or skin would be unacceptable. Still, Liz takes pride in her handiwork when Albert's engagement to Artemisia is officially announced, looking forward to a quiet life now that her ordeal seems over. However, her moment of relief turns out to be short-lived. She finds herself overwhelmed once again by her sister's ridiculous demands. A glance reveals the sheer amount of work assigned to her. She must finish the family attire before next week. Having gone 3 days without sleep, she panics that it is totally impossible. Liz despairs over the crepe fabric and endless frills. The design demands 5 meters of lace alongside intricate flower embroidery. Overwhelmed, she wonders how many hands she needs and desperately looks for shortcuts. She decides to pattern and repeat elements, pushing herself to speed up. Against all odds, Liz manages to finish everything right in time. She cries in relief, knowing she will avoid a beating and won't go hungry. She rejoices in completing the preparations at the last minute. The sweet feeling of accomplishment fills her heart. Having worked continuously without food or sleep, Liz is utterly starving. She spots a lavish food spread at the engagement party. Her eyes light up at the sight of all the delicious dishes. Liz happily devours canapés and bruschetta, amazed by how delicious everything tastes. With stuffed cheeks, she decides the engagement ceremony is truly wonderful. She continues eating happily while the party goes on around her. Nearby, a dark-haired man watches the scene in silence. Later, she wakes up feeling disoriented as whispers echo around her. She groans softly, feeling an overwhelming heaviness and discomfort in her chest. Fearing she might throw up, she clutches herself and tries desperately to hold it in. Artemisia turns toward her sister with a cold, mocking look. Bystanders begin to whisper, asking Artemisia what on earth is wrong with the girl. Artemisia dismissively explains that Liz is her sister who simply neglects her appearance. She brushes it off as a bad joke, complaining about how embarrassing Liz's behavior is. With a cruel smirk, she decides to walk away and leave her sister behind. Liz collapses to the floor, gasping and groaning in extreme distress. Albert approaches her gently, offering a kind and reassuring voice. Despite his soothing words, Liz's vision fades completely into darkness. Artemisia harshly orders Liz to get up immediately. She scolds her furiously for vomiting in front of the king and queen. Artemisia demands to know what she was thinking. Liz can only groan helplessly in response. Artemisia snaps that Liz cannot complain even if she gets executed for such disgraceful behavior. Liz whimpers out a faint apology. Artemisia then threatens to kill her herself on the spot. Artemisia fumes that apologies change nothing, while an older woman tries to calm her down. A sudden knock on the door interrupts Artemisia's furious tirade against Liz. The woman reassures Artemisia as Albert interrupts to offer water for Liz. He politely hands over the glass to help the young girl. The woman quickly resolves to send Liz straight home. Albert bows respectfully, expressing gratitude for the king's mercy. Artemisia clicks her tongue in frustration and turns away from the scene. Artemisia glares at her, telling her to hurry up and go home. She trips and stumbles as she tries to walk away on her own. She insists that she is fine and can head back alone, but suddenly gasps in pain as she tries to refuse. The guard points out that she looks exhausted and needs a proper checkup under the king's orders, making her reluctantly agree. She looks around curiously and asks where they actually are. The guard explains they are in the medical magic section of the palace, where healing spells are permitted unlike in the main palace. The guard takes his leave and she politely thanks him as he steps away. She suddenly stops, noticing an intense presence nearby. Liz turns her head, startled by a sudden shadow cast across the doorway. A handsome young man in a grand military uniform stands silently in the entrance. She senses a powerful aura around him, noting how the shimmering air vibrates near his presence. She gazes at him in wonder, questioning who this imposing figure could be. She assumes that he must be an extraordinarily powerful mage. She panics when his intense gaze locks directly onto her. Terrified by his stern expression, she cowers in fear as he begins walking straight toward her. He reaches out gently and observes that she is covered in injuries. He casts a soothing light of magic directly over her bruised arms. She remarks in surprise that the treatment does not hurt at all. Relieved by his gentle healing magic, she whispers a soft thank you. Suddenly, Albert leans in and grabs her wrist with a serious look. She gasps in total confusion as he pulls her closer. She cries out when her balance slips completely. Albert pins her hand down, exposing the mysterious mark on her wrist. He stares intensely at the injured skin with a stern expression. Liz looks up at him in wide-eyed shock. Holding her down on the bed, Albert sternly demands to know how she got the magic burn. Dior gently holds Liz's discolored wrist to examine her injury. Liz panics completely internally as she finds herself pinned down beneath Dior on the bed. Dior leans in closer to inspect the strange mark on Liz's skin. He grimly points out the magical burn on her wrist. Liz blinks back in complete confusion. The two remain close together on the bed as he continues his assessment. Liz nods along nervously to his claim. Dior explains that such severe burns only come from prolonged contact with magic tools. Dior holds up her pale arm to reveal the distinct discoloration near her wrist. He warns her that the condition is extremely severe. Liz sheepishly admits that she only noticed a slight discoloration on her skin. Dior sternly asks her how much magic she drains herself with daily. Liz asks nervously if a magic burn is really that dangerous. He firmly tells her that magic burns serve as a vital warning sign from her body. Liz stammers that the mark on her wrist has been present for a very long time. She pauses silently as she reflects on how long she has endured it. Liz reveals that the mark has been there since childhood, assuming it was a simple sunburn. Dior shouts in shock at her ignorance. He sternly warns that continuing like this will cause her body to waste away and die. He mutters in utter disbelief that she is even still breathing. Dior shifts the topic, noting she is from the Riviere magic shop. Liz timidly confirms her identity to him. Dior addresses Liz directly and orders her to stop crafting magic tools instantly. He commands her to take a full month of rest and recovery. Liz meekly agrees at first before sweating in panic. She internally worries that taking time off is impossible. Liz frets quietly that her family will beat her if she slacks off. Meanwhile, Dior pulls out a custom pure magic stone pendant crafted at her shop 8 years ago. He reminisces about receiving it when he first began studying magic, calling it his most cherished treasure. He admires the incredible purity of its stone. He mentions hearing that no other shop in the country can match such quality. Advising Liz not to rush and to take care of herself, he predicts she will become a renowned artisan. Liz remembers the moment she handed over the item she had crafted. She points out the small initial she carved right next to her father's signature. Overjoyed, she proudly explains that it is her own creation and asks him to bring it back anytime. Dior looks surprised as Liz expresses how moved she is to hear someone call her work a treasure. She promises to polish it back to new before returning it. Dior demands proof that Liz is really the one who made it. Liz humbly notes that these items are mass-produced in her shop. She eagerly offers to forge an exact copy on the spot if he wants proof. Dior scoffs at her claim that such craftsmanship could be mass-produced. Liz instantly activates her magic to materialize a new stone. She presents the freshly finished magic stone to him. Dior stares in awe at the newly forged pure magic stone. Liz modestly downplays her skill compared to true mage crafters. She explains that her grandmother was a famous artisan who personally taught her rare techniques. Dior absorbs the news about her grandmother's identity. He recognizes the legendary artisan Liz is referring to. Dior's stern expression softens completely in understanding. Liz notices his frightening look fade as Dior calls her his savior, vowing to repay his debt to her. He reflects on how countlessly her stone saved his life. Delighted by his gratitude, she listens as he abruptly asks what she usually eats. Liz blinks in total confusion at his sudden question. She stammers that she only eats whatever cheap dark bran bread she can get. Dior listens gravely as her poor living conditions become clear. He inquires about her sleeping schedule and wake-up times. Liz admits she sleeps around midnight and gets up before sunrise. Dior sighs heavily, comparing her harsh life to the illegal slaves he rescues. He grimly tells her that her situation is no different from theirs. Dior asks her why she is being forced to push her magic past her physical limits. He brings up her family shop's widely known reputation. He finds it absurd that such a wealthy establishment cannot support its younger child. He points out that they mass-produce pure magic stones and unique items, scoffing at their claim of being a small business. Liz internally wonders why he is so angry, reminding herself that academy costs are high and everyone must work to make ends meet. Liz confesses she knows little about money but hopes the upcoming marriage brings relief. Her sister's engagement should finally improve their meager lives. Dior bluntly interrupts her thoughts, declaring that she is being deceived. Liz looks up in utter shock. Dior stares down cold and composed. Liz stammers in total confusion at his claim of deceit. Dior tells her that explaining would be useless. He insists that words mean nothing once a person is brainwashed. He announces that he is placing her under his protection immediately. There will be no need for her to ever return home. Liz gapes in utter disbelief at his sudden statement. He formally introduces himself as Duke Hospitalier Dior. Liz realizes he is the famous prodigy from a legendary alchemy lineage. He became a duke while still in his teenage years. Her mother used to speak of him as a regular customer. She recognizes him as the genius magician, which Dior calmly confirms. Liz stammers an apology for her previous rudeness. Dior cuts her off to state that she now belongs to the House of Hospitalier. He sternly clarifies that this is an absolute decree. Liz gasps, completely overwhelmed by his intense tone. He chillingly warns her about what happens if she dares disobey. Trembling, she hesitantly asks what will happen if she disobeys. Dior coldly warns her that disobedience is punishable by death. The grand estate of Hospitalier stands tall under the morning sun. Liz slowly wakes up, noticing a delicious aroma filling the room. She inhales deeply, delighted by the sweet scent. She sits up instantly, recognizing the smell of buttercream. Liz wonders what happened to her after last night's events. Suddenly, a cheerful voice greets her good morning. The speaker, Pierre, arrives with a lavish breakfast tray and asks what topping she prefers for her bread. Confused, she asks who he is and if he is truly offering the meal to her. Seeing her hesitation, Pierre decides to prepare the food for her himself. Liz gapes at the delicious meal, caught off guard by such lavish luxury. Pierre sets down the breakfast spread while Liz remains bewildered in bed. Liz asks where she is and Pierre explains that this is Lord Dior's main residence. He notes that it is the primary mansion where Dior spends most of his time. Liz marvels at the mouth-watering smell of the elaborate meal and wonders why it was prepared for her. Pierre explains that Lord Dior specifically ordered that she be fed proper food. He warns her about what will happen if she dares to refuse. Pierre declares she will face execution for refusing, sending Liz into utter shock. Liz trembles violently at the extreme penalty for simply declining breakfast. Wary of hidden costs, Liz asks if she will be charged later, but Pierre assures her it is free. Pierre confirms that she can eat as much as she desires without any cost. Liz rejoices in delight when she realizes the entire feast is completely free. She reaches for the freshly buttered bread with eager excitement. Biting into the warm bread, Liz swoons over its incredible flavor. She happily devours the meal with blissful delight. Liz digs into every dish, amazed by how delicious everything tastes. After finishing her feast, she politely thanks Pierre for the meal. Curious about her host, Liz finally asks Pierre who he is. He apologizes for his late introduction and presents himself as Pierre, Lord Dior's attendant. He mentions that a properly trained maid will be sent to assist her by the end of the month. The mansion corridor stands quiet while Pierre continues explaining his current duties. Pierre offers to care for her personally due to the lack of female staff. Liz breaks down in utter confusion when he addresses her as Madam. He admits that addressing someone so young as Madam feels inappropriate. He boldly offers a friendlier form of address instead. Pierre cheerfully introduces himself by name while Liz blurts out her full name, urging him to simply call her Liz. Pierre informs Liz she will be summoned for dinner later, surprising her that she gets fed again. He advises Lady Liz to rest for the rest of the day. Pierre reveals Lord Dior strictly ordered her to eat and sleep, warning that disobedience means death. Pierre gets ready to step out of the room. Pierre turns around before leaving. Liz wonders about the food, prompting Pierre to describe tonight's main dish of coastal collegiate calf steak before taking his leave. Pierre quietly knocks on the grand door at the end of the long hallway. Pierre politely excuses himself as he closes the door. As the door creaks open, Liz waits nervously right beside him. Dior sits quietly at a lavishly prepared dining table, waiting patiently. Dior looks up from his meal and asks Liz if she slept well. Liz timidly stammers her positive response. Dior calmly nods in approval. He warns her that her family might order her to return home. Dior instructs her to ignore them and await his commands, leaving Liz anxious. Liz worries internally about abandoning her workshop duties. She fears her family's wrath for slacking off while Dior demands her response. Dior commands absolute obedience from now on and Liz submissively agrees. He sharply reminds her that even her family comes second. Liz is shocked by his harsh declaration and inwardly calls him a tyrant as he reiterates that his orders must strictly take priority. He sternly warns her that he will not tolerate any backtalk. He threatens severe punishment if she fails to follow his orders. Dior commands her to eat immediately and she hastily obeys. She hesitates as she tastes the hot food. Liz takes a bite and reacts in surprise. She exclaims at how piping hot and delicious the food tastes. Dior asks if she enjoys it. Liz enthusiastically confirms that it is wonderful. She eagerly keeps chewing her meal. Dior acknowledges her answer and tells her to eat until full. Liz softly expresses her deep gratitude toward him. She gazes at the noble figure sitting across from her. She begins to rethink her view of him. She realizes that despite his scary demeanor, he might actually be kind. Still, she feels guilty eating without contributing any work. She stammers as she offers to help. She suggests that she could at least peel vegetables. Dior pauses and glares at her in utter confusion. He asks if she listened to his instructions. He reminds her that his word is absolute law. He points out that peeling vegetables violates his strict command. Liz stammers nervously while trying to explain her position. She notes that he welcomed her into a magnificent grand mansion. She adds that he even provided her with delicious meals. She admits that she has no money to offer. Liz pleads that she wants to contribute at least some favor. Dior suddenly cuts and asks if she dislikes dogs. Liz blinks in complete surprise at his unexpected question. Dior asks if she feels uncomfortable around large dogs. She replies that she likes all animals. She adds a condition that they must not bite. Dior assures her the dog will not bite, though he can be rowdy. Liz lights up with delight at the idea. Dior watches her reaction intently as she listens. She excitedly begs to see the animal, prompting him to offer her a job to pay off her meal. She eagerly accepts his offer without hesitation. Dior assigns her as Ferris's walking partner starting tomorrow, warning that the wolf spirit is a handful, and she happily agrees while he points out a stray breadcrumb on her cheek. He tells Pierre to keep eating when the attendant pauses with a fork. Outside, the grand estate sits quiet under the bright morning sun. Pierre frantically shushes the noisy spirit. The next morning, Pierre warns the barking creature to be quiet because Lady Liz is still resting. Liz rushes out apologizing for oversleeping, while the spirit complains that walk time has already begun. Pierre turns to address Liz respectfully. Pierre apologizes for the foolish mutt, outraging the spirit who demands not to be called that. Liz blinks in confusion, wondering what all the commotion is about. The massive, fluffy, magical wolf Ferris proudly introduces himself as his master's loyal spirit. Pierre calls him an egoist while Ferris shouts back in defense. Liz ignores their bickering and finds the giant wolf adorable. Liz recalls how she was treated like a slave and forced into heavy labor at her family's magic tool shop. Everything changed when she collapsed during her sister's engagement ceremony. Fortunately, Dior came to her rescue, leading directly to her new life. Now she finds herself assigned to the unexpected duty of walking a dog. The giant magic wolf stands tall and intimidating beside her. Ferryrus questions how a scrawny weakling like her could have possibly defeated his master, leaving her stammering. He orders her to start by walking slowly around the garden to build up stamina. She nervously agrees as he bounded ahead. After finishing the lap, Ferryrus praises her for doing well despite being so fragile. Liz collapses from exhaustion after just one single lap around the massive estate garden. Ferris insists she is still far too weak, boasting that he runs 100 kilometers every day. He insists she must build up enough strength to run at least 10 kilometers alongside him. The energetic wolf orders her to repeat his running slogan about muscles never betraying you. Liz squeaks in intimidation as he aggressively chants the workout mantra. Ferryrus leads her over to another task near the water well. He assigns her the next duty, instructing her to fill a large wooden tub with water. He points out the outdoor well as her designated water source. Liz agrees to help but suddenly hesitates as a thought strikes her. She questions whether a powerful magic wolf like him cannot simply summon water himself. Ferris loudly asserts that natural well water tastes far better than magic water. Liz approaches the well to begin pulling up water for the tub. She hauls the heavy rope attached to the well bucket with all her strength. Examining the rope and bucket, she notices a weight reduction magic formula applied to them. She quickly carries the bucket back to fill the tub for Ferryrus. The wolf praises her efforts, explaining his paws cannot manage fine physical work. Realizing his physical limitations, Liz considers a new approach. She places her hand over the heavy water tub, preparing to cast magic. With a focused expression, she attempts to apply her magic spell directly onto the tub. She unleashes a burst of bright magic around herself. She presents her freshly altered enchanted tub with a bright smile. Proud of her work, Liz announces that the magic tool is finished. Liz pauses in thought before asking Ferris to place his paw on a specific spot on the device. Ferryrus looks at the device in curiosity while listening to her instructions. The giant spirit dog excitedly presses his paw onto the magic mechanism. Liz guides Ferryrus as the spirit dog eagerly follows her instructions. Liz explains that releasing magic into the device causes the tub to rise from the well automatically, making water collection effortless. Ferryrus howls in marvel at the ingenious design. Meanwhile, the little spirit creature in the water looks on in quiet confusion. Thrilled by her accomplishment, Ferryrus praises Liz enthusiastically and leaps forward for a high five, though removing his paw breaks the magic spell. As the magical energy fails, the heavy tub falls toward Liz, making her gasp in sudden terror. Ferryrus panics and apologizes profusely for his overexcitement as the water splashes down. Pierre rushes in, warning Liz that she is about to tumble into the water. The attendant calls out her name in concern as she gets soaked. Pierre bows and apologizes to Liz for the dog's foolish behavior, insisting on taking her inside for a warm bath immediately. Pierre glares sternly at Ferryrus and threatens to report all of his rudeness directly to Lord Dior. Liz simply smiles and offers her heartfelt thanks instead. Liz softly calls out to Ferryrus to soothe his distress. The spirit dog whimpers remorsefully under Pierre's sharp glare. Ferryrus whimpers in guilt and offers Liz his prize bone as an apology. She politely declines the gift, noting that she does not really need it. Meanwhile, back at the Riviere Magic Tool Shop, Jean Riviere reads an official letter in absolute fury. The notice from Duke Hospitalier states that Liz was diagnosed with a severe magic burn and taken into ducal custody. Jean rages in shock that the Duke himself has taken his daughter away. Jean complains that this is happening just as business is booming due to Artemisia's royal engagement. An associate sighs over their piles of unfilled orders and lack of crafting materials. Jean scoffs in dismissal, declaring that his daughter was completely useless to them anyway. The associate agrees with Jean's assessment. He dismisses Liz's abilities, claiming she has nothing special going for her except petty household and blessing magic. Those minor magic disciplines were precisely what Liz used to craft all their shop's successful magical tools. Unaware of her true value, the shopkeepers gloat that record sales will let them live in luxury once the current batch is done. Meanwhile, a dark hooded figure stands in contemplation as malicious plans take shape. She mutters that even if Liz was the only one recognized by Mother, they must prevent the world from discovering her talent. Agreeing her skill must remain hidden so they can banish her to a convent once they secure the money. Artemisia snaps that there is no point in complaining, and Riviere agrees that they'll simply have to make the materials themselves as he shouts out in determination to get to work. A few hours pass as they struggle with the task. Artemisia complains about how slow the thread-spinning process is, but her mother tells her she just needs to get used to it. Artemisia points out that even half-trained Liz could manage it. She believes that once they catch the hang of it, the work will go quickly. Riviere weakly agrees with her logic. The family continues to struggle with the grueling labor of manual crafting. Artemisia reacts in complete disbelief upon hearing the news. She angrily calls Liz a slacker for avoiding work. She accuses her of using magic burns as an excuse to run away. She screams in panic upon learning that Liz was taken to the Duke's mansion and demands to know what they should do. Artemisia insists that she needs to finish the prince's special order. Her mother tells her to look at their dire situation. She repeats how crucial the order is. Her mother shouts back that they are already drastically short on help. Artemisia coldly tells her mother to craft it herself if she wants it done. Her mother angrily snaps back that she will do it herself. Riviere shouts in frustration over another failed attempt that wasted all their remaining materials. Artemisia taunts him, asking if his skills have dropped just because one errand girl is missing. Artemisia recalls the prince's order for a chameleon dress made from Maori fabric. She notes that it is the kind of mythical item only found in fairy tales. She mentions how it reflects the wearer's will and changes color accordingly. However, Prince Albert believes someone with her reputed skills should easily accomplish it. Artemisia prays to her guardian goddess to guide her hands. She reasons that if a fool like Liz could create it, the task should be simple for her. She prepares to generate magic weave from magic thread. She convinces herself that success will be effortless. Artemisia smirks arrogance as she effortlessly completes the weave, wondering why her parents struggled so much. She moves on to embedding the color-changing magic formula into the fabric. Instead, she experiences a sudden magic backlash while working. She gasps in horror as the thread fails to respond to her magic. She stares in disbelief at her failure. She recalls that natural fabrics block magic. She wonders if spinning conductive thread would work. A voice reminds her that weaving conductive thread requires a secret formula. Artemisia fumes in frustration over how much skill color changing requires. She rages over having to perform such menial, tedious work herself. Artemisia urges her parents to bring Liz back home immediately. She stresses that only Liz can craft these intricate magic items. Her father agrees, admitting they are overwhelmed preparing materials alone. Her parents demand Liz's immediate return. Meanwhile, Liz enjoys a quiet moment at the estate. Liz happily eats a delicious meal she has never tasted before. A woman demands the recipe for the delicious dish. Dior orders his staff to retrieve the recipe. Liz eagerly agrees to fetch it, thrilled by the wonderful flavors. She relaxes in the bright sunlight. Liz smiles warmly in the peaceful garden. Liz looks up and admires the clear blue sky. She reflects on how much her daily life has changed. She enjoys tasty food and colorful flower beds every day. She walks around the garden with Phoephirus and plays fetch with him. Liz marvels at how peaceful her new life has become. She realizes she never had time to simply look at the sky before. She smiles softly, feeling much healthier and genuinely happy as she holds Phoephirus. She looks down at her hands, taking in her restored strength. She mentions being full of energy and ready to return home, but right then Dior interrupts her arrival, apologizing for keeping her waiting. Dior introduces strawberry cream dessert and notes he received the recipe from the chef. Liz excitedly reads the paper, realizing she could make the treat herself. She nods cheerfully as she studies the details. He tells her she can simply ask the chef whenever she wants it, but she thanks him enthusiastically anyway. His tone suddenly shifts as he hesitates to speak. He sternly declares he will not let her return home. She frantically insists she never meant any dissatisfaction with her stay. She reflects on her identity as a shopkeeper's daughter, bound to crafting magic tools forever. She turns her gaze toward him, addressing him softly. She admits that staying in his mansion has been wonderful, knowing she must eventually return to her harsh life. She continues listing all the delightful things about her time here. Playing with Phoephirus has felt peaceful, making time pass slowly and comfortably. She realizes how completely different their worlds are, as if she was waking up from a trance. She mentally prepares herself to leave this brief dream behind. She expresses deep gratitude to him for allowing her to experience such joy. She points out her healed burn, but Dior firmly repeats that he has no intention of letting her leave. Dior reassures her that her happiness is all that matters, then casually drops the news that he is getting engaged tomorrow. She gazes in complete bewilderment as the conversation takes a sudden turn. Phoephirus screeches in disbelief upon hearing news of an upcoming engagement, prompting Dior to tell him to quiet down, while Liz nervously wonders aloud if he should even be having tea with her right now. Dior calmly questions what she means, clarifying that the arrangement involves himself. He points out that she is the other person involved, which she naturally understands. Liz suddenly shrieks in utter shock, flustered by his startling declaration. She stammers that she never expressed fond feelings toward him, pointing out that she hardly knows anything about him. Dior explains plainly that getting engaged or married is the fastest legal method to remove her from her family's custody. He tells her that she has completely misunderstood his intentions, leaving her visibly relieved. He then asks if she has any objections, to which she quietly shakes her head. Dior leans in closer with a provocative look, introducing a playful alternative. Liz panics instantly and protests that such an idea is impossible. He chuckles lightly and admits he was only teasing her. She catches her breath and mutters that his jokes are terrible for her heart. He then asks directly if she wants him to make her fall in love with him since they are entering an engagement. He sternly adds that if she wishes to avoid marrying him, she must quickly figure out a way to become independent. Dior notes how strict local laws grant parents near absolute control over their children, legalizing mistreatment under the guise of discipline. He warns that retaliating against abusive parents would only result in severe legal punishment for her. Liz realizes with surprise that he was fully aware of the abuse she endured at home. He reiterates that parents can exploit a child completely without any legal resistance allowed. Because of that reality, her options for escape are nearly non-existent. He challenges her to explain how she could possibly break free on her own. Dior gives her until tomorrow to present an independent solution, or else they will move forward with their engagement. Liz listens in quiet resignation as he outlines the terms. He acknowledges that he might not be the most ideal husband to choose. He promises her, however, that he will never exploit her skills or abandon her when she is no longer useful. Liz hesitates, unsure of how to respond to his grand offer. She looks down pensively, processing the weight of his proposal. Meanwhile, a quiet alleyway stands empty in the royal town. Anxious whispers circulate nearby regarding a member of the noble house. There, a bearded man notes that the target girl was taken in by the duke's family. He warns Artemisia that this job will not be easy and will cost a high price. Artemisia hands over a heavy pouch, replying that she is already aware of the cost. She instructs him to rough the girl up without killing her. He looks shocked as she specifically demands that he leave her hands completely unharmed. Artemisia stands in the dark shadows as she plots her next move. With a sinister smirk, she whispers that Liz's hands are her most important tools. Dior prompts Liz to continue speaking. He asks if she has thought of another way to escape her family. Liz hesitates as she sits before him. Dior declares that an engagement is her best option to take immediately. He tells her to sign the document and finalize their vow. Liz stammers an objection, unable to accept so quickly. She acknowledges that marriage is her only escape from her parents. However, she still hesitates to make such a drastic decision. Liz asks what benefit the Duke gains from this arrangement. She explains that as a craftsman's daughter, she was raised on business deals. She emphasizes that no deal should ever be made without proper compensation. Dior asks if she thinks he seeks profit from someone suffering from magical burns. Liz quietly shrinks back, unable to answer. She voices her concern that he might be a worse villain than her parents. Dior commends her for thinking things through carefully. He offers to explain his motives and reveals that he is extremely angry. Dior clarifies that his anger is directed at both her parents and her. He glares down at her intensity. He urges her to value herself much more than she currently does. He refuses to forgive those who treat a talented magic toolmaker like garbage. Liz gasps softly as his intense words sink in. Liz wonders if he truly loves magic tools that much, admitting her own mind is unclear. Dior acknowledges that she is an exploited girl. He commands her to simply obey him without hesitation. He warns that he will not offer gentle words to comfort her. Intimidated by his stern tone, Liz squeaks out an agreement. Dior approves of her obedience as she looks down at her magic pendant. She gasps as the marriage contract magic activates and Dior tells her to sign. She agrees and completes the document. Their magical agreement is officially sealed. Kneeling before her, Dior vows in Hera's name to take her as his partner. He promises to devotionally love her for as long as he lives. Dior declares that their engagement is now fully official. Liz looks on, taken aback by his sudden serious declaration. The newly betrothed couple stays together in quiet contemplation. Dior asks Liz how old she is this year, pausing in thought. Liz hesitates for a moment before answering that she is 15 and an adult. She figures that her age makes a difference. Dior nods, realizing a 10-year-old could never have crafted a pure magic stone. He decides to share the truth with her. He admits that he thinks she actually crafted his special stone when she was only 7. Liz notices Dior's quiet mood and nervously asks if she did something wrong. Dior explains he had a stone made at age 11, meaning he was nowhere near her skill level at 7. Liz quickly insists that isn't true at all. Dior pulls out the cherished magic pendant to inspect it closely. Dior gently insists she shouldn't be modest about her talent. He reassures her of her incredible potential. He tells her that one day she will easily surpass him. Dior walks away while turning back to speak to Liz. Later on, newspaper reports of their engagement cause a massive stir throughout high society. Meanwhile, Dior tells Liz he looks forward to seeing her future growth. Liz reflects on how unimaginable this life is compared to living with her parents, yet her daily routine stays peaceful and unchanged. Recalling those dreamlike days, she is greeted by her maid announcing that a personal maid will be assigned to her starting today. Liz reacts in utter surprise, asking if the new maid is truly meant for her alone. The maid explains that the newcomer was sent from the master's estate and is skilled enough to be a great help. Liz feels it is far too much for someone like her, but the maid insists they will now put even more effort into dressing her up nicely. Liz points out that she has already been borrowing such lovely clothes. She then asks whose fine garments those originally were. When told that Duke Hospitalier himself prepared them, Liz is stunned. Encouraged to make good use of them, she expresses deep gratitude while marveling that he had such expensive clothes arranged for her. Hearing a knock at the door, Liz responds to the visitor. The new maid enters, politely introducing herself as her assigned servant and asking for gentle guidance, despite her shortcomings. Liz cheerfully responds, introducing herself as Liz before asking for the maid's name. The maid coolly replies that servants do not have names and tells Liz to call her whatever she likes. Liz is left confused by the response. Liz points out that Pierre gave his name freely, asking what the maid was called at her previous post. The maid reveals that her previous mistress called her Anne. Hearing this, Liz realizes her family's shop conducted business with the Duke's house and gapes in surprise. Liz wonders aloud if that mistress's name was Lady Henriette. Liz questions why a master would give a servant a name so similar to her own and asks what kind of person the madam was. Anne explains that she was a wealthy elderly woman living alone, whose recent funeral left her seeking new employment. Hearing this, Liz senses something deeply suspicious about her story. Liz realizes with certainty that Anne is lying. She internally notes that Anne's claim of coming from the Duke's family is completely false. Liz prepares to take action. She contemplates whether she should consult Pierre about the maid's suspicious claims. Suddenly, Anne grabs her from behind and commands her not to move. Liz gasps in shock as she finds herself trapped. Holding a blade close to her neck, the maid ominously warns her to stay quiet. Liz instantly realizes her attacker is an assassin. She knows targeting a helpless assistant makes no sense. The real objective must be Duke Hospitalier himself. As Liz realizes the Duke is the real guy, threatens to force poison down her throat right now. She promises to provide the antidote only if Liz follows her instructions to the letter. Anne holds a vial of poison up to Liz's mouth. Liz panics at the thought of being coerced into assisting with the Duke's murder. She refuses to let herself become an accomplice to such a plot. There is absolutely no way she will comply. She begins spinning magic thread while frantically trying to figure out the assassin's plan. She quickly casts her blessing magic to protect herself. Anne stumbles back in surprise as magical threads encase the girl in a protective cocoon. Liz enhances the defense spell with a 1,000-fold time acceleration magic. Anne clicks her tongue in frustration at the girl's troublesome spellcraft. Anne looks around the empty spot where Liz was standing moments before. She searches the room frantically, baffled by the girl's sudden disappearance. Hidden safely away, Liz vows to stay completely quiet and out of sight. From within, Liz explains that the fabric she crafted from the cocoon is made entirely of pure magical power. She added an illusion spell to its surface to blend completely with her surroundings. Excited by her success, she realizes she must go tell Pierre immediately. Her own magic reflects perfectly through the fabric, rendering her body totally invisible to others. Suddenly, Anne bursts into the room and spots her hiding under the magical cloth. She stares at the mysterious garment with intense suspicion and demands to know what it is. Shocked by what she sees, the aggressive maid realizes it is a functional cloak of invisibility. Anne can hardly believe a practical cloak has already been successfully crafted. She draws a sharp dagger and looms over the girl, questioning if Zena's granddaughter made it. She then second-guesses whether a child could truly pull off such advanced magic. The terrifying maid readies her weapon, ready to strike down the helpless girl. Liz trembles in terror, convinced that the hostile maid is about to murder her. Just in time, Pierre interrupts from the doorway and asks if everything is all right. Liz gasps in relief and frantically begs Pierre to save her from the dangerous woman. Pierre rushes into the room alongside Ferris to protect her from harm. Interrupted in her task, Anne slips away through the window, promising to return later. Pierre and Ferris anxiously check on Liz to ensure she was not wounded during the encounter. Shaken but physically unharmed, Liz manages to reassure them that she is completely fine. Bursting into tears, Liz cries out that she has never encountered a real assassin before. Ferris gasps in shock at her sudden realization. The spirit wolf panics upon hearing that an assassin breached the manor. Meanwhile, Lord Dior arrives, noting that Pierre has already briefed him on the attack. Dior then examines an orchid creation, asking what it is as she steps forward to explain. She clarifies it was made on the spot for self-defense, not left behind by the attacker. Surprised, Dior asks if it is magically woven fabric due to its extremely high magic density. Liz confirms that the material is crafted entirely out of pure magic power. Liz offers to demonstrate its properties, leaving Dior slightly intrigued. Dior notes pure magic fabric is impractical. Liz layers invisibility magic onto it, astonishing him. She explains it was very useful to do so. Dior watches intently as the magic unfolds before his eyes. Liz prepares the magic demonstration with a modest smile. She sheepishly blushes, admitting that her creation feels a bit childish and embarrassing. Liz explains this is her most familiar magic. Dior reacts with utter disbelief to her calling it childish. Dior asks who else knows of her magic, warning it could shift the nation's power balance. He questions if anyone in her family shares this skill. Liz stammers that nobody special knows. Liz mentions crafting a tool that projected a flying falcon illusion. It contained a very unusual gimmick. Her sister strictly commanded her to make it for the prince. Having studied illusion magic for that project, she used it instinctively. Dior mutters thoughtfully in response. Dior admits he used to consider her just a genius toolsmith. Now he realizes he was wrong. Dior gazes deeply at Liz as he prepares to declare her true worth. Liz downplays her skill as nothing special. Dior firmly declares she is a legendary-class toolsmith. Liz denies being a genius and insists she cannot compare to her grandmother. Liz stands wide-eyed, overwhelmed by Dior's grand declaration. Dior commends her for driving off the assassin, saying she deserves high praise. Liz wonders when she was last praised, as Dior warm-heartedly tells her well done. Touched by the praise, Liz flushes with gratitude and offers Dior her heartfelt thanks. Her companion enthusiastically cheers for Liz's remarkable achievement. Ferris then dramatically offers his fluffy mane as a special reward for her hard work. Dior apologizes while Ferris continues shouting about letting her pet him. Liz bonks Ferris on the head after he makes too much noise. Dior mutters that the creature is far too noisy. He reminds Liz that she is not here to be put in danger. He warns her to make sure she does not act recklessly. Liz listens quietly as Dior gives his strict instructions. Dior gently holds Liz's hand with serious care. He tells her that her hand no longer belongs only to her and bids her to take care of it. Liz looks closely into Dior's calm and handsome face. She marvels at how pretty his expressionless face and gentle eyes appear. Liz feels his hands are cold as ice and wonders if that earned him his title. He is widely known throughout the realm as the Duke of Ice. Liz reflects that his title might mean something much deeper than just his cold touch. She keeps thinking back to the cold sensation of his hands on hers. 1 month after Duke Hospitalier took Liz under his protection, Artemisia demands to know why her tuition remains unpaid. Her father explains that the shady mercenaries she hired failed to retrieve Liz while still pocketing their money. They are completely broke from penalty fees, leaving their shop near seizure and forcing them to plan a sudden departure from town. Her father bluntly tells her to drop out since she is marrying into royalty anyway. Refusing to accept this fate, Artemisia fumes in silence. She resolves to turn to Prince Albert with a desperate scheme. She puts on a troubled expression before meeting the prince. Prince Albert notices her distress, prompting Artemisia to lie that her family business is failing. She tearfully claims she might have to drop out of the academy. Albert insists her leaving would be a national loss. Artemisia seizes the moment to claim her family suffered a terrible tragedy. She warns him that his requested chameleon dress will also be delayed. Albert listens attentively as she continues her story. Artemisia feigns heartbreak to manipulate his sympathy. She brings up Liz's engagement to Duke Hospitalier, which Albert acknowledges was big news at court. Artemisia spins a lie that Liz was envious of her engagement to the prince. She accuses Liz of falsely claiming abuse to manipulate the Duke into an engagement, appalling Albert. Artemisia adds that the Duke now treats her family as enemies and refuses to hear them out. She dramatically claims her parents lost the will to live after losing their precious daughter. She tearfully tells him they are shutting down their shop permanently. Begging for his help, Artemisia asks if the prince can intervene using his royal influence. Albert considers her plea, fully swayed by her act. Prince Albert agrees to help, while Artemisia adds that she deeply worries for Liz and wishes to meet her. She thanks the prince with a relieved smile, her deceitful plan successfully set in motion. A figure plots silently in the dark background. Kurumi introduces herself as Liz's new maid from the Azeth estate. Meanwhile, Jean schemely plans to threaten Liz into coming home. Liz remembers how Feriris confirmed Kurumi's true identity after driving off the previous assassin. Kurumi hands over a beginner kit that she failed to fix, prompting Liz to take a look. Kurumi offers her full support in private matters, leaving Liz impressed. Liz points out the misaligned circuit and offers to fix it. Kurumi is amazed as Liz effortlessly repairs the magic tool in an instant. Liz asks Kurumi if she has a favorite design. Kurumi wonders what kind of design she means. Liz suggests crafting a small accessory to hold a watch. Kurumi thanks Liz for her thoughtfulness, though she hesitates briefly. Kurumi admits that she rarely thinks about her personal style. Liz shares that she also prefers durable work clothes over frilly dresses. Kurumi mentions having very few personal clothes as a live-in maid. She adds that she adores the cute maid outfits at Azeroth. Liz admits that she is mostly used to fire-resistant work outfits herself. Kurumi giggles softly, feeling much closer to Liz now. She declares that going forward, they should both figure out what they truly like together. The maid reminds Liz she will become the lady of the house, startling Liz completely. The staff members exchange quiet looks as they observe Liz's flustered reaction. The maids insist it is only natural since Liz is Duke Dior's fiancé now. Liz sputters that their engagement was merely an emergency measure. Liz softly murmurs in acceptance as she tries to process her overwhelming situation. The maids gather in secret to whisper among themselves about Dior's unusual behavior. They explain that Dior usually dislikes women, making his interest in Liz remarkable. Liz quietly doubts that he even likes her at all. The maid reassures her that her fears are completely unfounded. She gleefully suggests putting Duke Hospitalier to the test right now. A lavish feast is laid out across the long dining table. The maid presents a piping hot dish of seafood paella Liz. The servants carefully pour drinks as the dining hall comes alive. Dior arrives and inquires about the dark caviar on the table. He apologizes for being late and checks if Liz has been eating well. Liz enthusiastically chirps that the food tastes absolutely delicious. Dior turns away slightly, hiding a sudden chuckle behind his hand. Liz's face turns red with embarrassment at his unexpected reaction. Dior mutters about exotic creatures, prompting Liz to scold him for laughing at her face. He quietly offers an apology. He admits that she looks remarkably different and transformed today. Dior softly adds that her new look suits her remarkably well. Liz stands stunned in her lovely new dress. Dior watches her intently with a calm expression. The maids whisper that Dior's rare praise is a once-in-a-thousand-years event. Liz doubts it is a compliment, but they urge her to feel confident. Dior commands her to get fully dressed up for an upcoming event. He announces that they will be visiting the royal castle tomorrow. The maid enthusiastically agrees to prepare everything required. She promises to handle all the royal preparations perfectly. Liz hesitantly addresses Dior, asking him a question as they travel. She inquires if Dior and the prince are friends. Liz wonders why they are heading to the castle again. Dior clarifies they are not friends and that Prince Albert issued a personal summons. He notes the prince is likely interested in her. Liz gasps in surprise at his words. Dior confirms that Prince Albert explicitly ordered him to bring her along. Liz looks increasingly anxious as they continue their journey. Dior mentions her sister Artemisia will be present too. Liz worries terribly that Artemisia will be furious with her for not returning home. Liz shrinks back in fear, overwhelmed by dread at the thought of encountering her sister. Liz admits she is terrified to see Artemisia. Dior reminds her that she is now his fiancé. He strictly forbids her from agreeing to anything from her family without his permission. He emphasizes that she must always seek his approval first. Liz timidly agrees and Dior nods in satisfaction. Dior asks if she knows Prince Albert. Liz confirms it, noting he always had Artemisia make magic tools for him. Dior adds that the prince is obsessed with magic tools. Dior points out that Albert overcame opposition just to engage Artemisia because of her shop background. Liz notes that their own engagement has now been announced. Dior warns that the prince will surely become interested in her as well. Liz panics at the thought of Prince Albert taking an interest in her craftsmanship. She fears Artemisia will kill her if that happens. Liz murmurs nervously about the magic tools. Liz reveals that she was the true creator of all those tools. Dior listens intently and sighs quietly. He asks what she means and realizes her family would force her back just to exploit her crafting skills. Liz softly confirms his fears. Dior decides it is crucial to keep the true reason for their engagement a complete secret. Dior warns that if the prince discovers he's protecting her, he will uncover her true crafting potential. He explains that Artemisia might harm her, or the prince might claim her for himself. Liz asks in distress what they should do. Dior proposes a cover story for their betrothal. He suggests claiming he fell in love with her at first sight. Dior firmly decides that this will be their official excuse. He tells her they must act like a deeply affectionate couple marrying for pure romance. He asks if she understands. Liz blushes and agrees meekly. She thinks to herself how brutally overwhelming his playful remarks are to her heart. The carriage arrives at the Grand Royal Palace grounds. Liz struggles to alight from the carriage and marvels at noble grace, but Dior calls her a fool. He offers his hand, informing her that at times like this she should accept a gentleman's help. Dior gently holds her hand and asks his dear fiancé to take good care of him. Liz blushes deeply as she processes the intimate moment. Panicking internally, she suddenly remembers that they are only supposed to be pretending to be lovers. She frets in confusion, wondering how to respond properly. Her inexperienced mind has no idea how to handle this. She gasps softly as her thoughts race. Desperate, she tries to recall lines from old fairy tales or romantic promos. Blushing furiously, she stammeringly addresses him as her winter general of love. Dior smirks, amused by her absurd dramatic response. Dior finds her reaction genuinely amusing as a guard steps up to lead Duke Hospelier inside. Liz apologizes for her awkwardness while feeling intensely nervous. Dior accepts the guard's escort with composure. They arrive before the grand entrance of the magnificent venue. Suddenly, a woman calls out to Liz from nearby. She expresses relief at seeing Liz, astonished by the sudden engagement news. She reveals how deeply worried she was for her dear friend. Artie rushes up to Reze and cries out in distress. She embraces Reze tightly and expresses her relief. Artie asks if Reze is eating, while Reze quietly speaks up. The emotional reunion continues. Reze internally recoils from the painful, suffocating touch. Artie questions why Reze suddenly left home. She then claims Reze must be burdening the Duke. As Arte urges her to return home, Dior interrupts to declare she is no trouble. Arte stammers in surprise at the Duke's sudden intervention. Dior steps in closer and pulls Reze away from Arte. He gently takes hold of Rize's hands with affectionate devotion. Dior pulls Reze close and tells Arte to stop monopolizing his fiancé. Dior gazes tenderly at Reze while speaking. Dior admits his jealousy, surprising both Arte and Prince Albert. Reze politely thanks everyone for coming and brings up the main discussion. Prince Albert explains that he arranged this meeting because Arte was worried. He gestures toward the uncomfortable atmosphere around Dior. Albert asks Dior to drop his intense, unwelcoming aura. Arte puts on a dramatic performance about how many women will envy Reze. Arte continues praising Dior's captivating charm. Dior ignores Arte entirely and focuses all his attention on Reze. Dior dramatically feeds Reze while professing his love, leaving Reze thoroughly flustered. Prince Albert watches the spectacle with an awkward expression. Jeanne apologizes profusely for her poor manners, but Prince Albert tells him it is unnecessary. Reze tries to speak up, softly calling out to Dior. He warns her to tone down their lovey-dovey act, though she wonders if they ought to keep displaying affection. He insists their bond is obvious, noting how his own brother acts. She agrees that they should show intimacy through natural conversation instead. Arte calls out to Reze with a pained expression. She claims their parents are exhausted with worry over Rize's sudden departure. Reze looks down, weighed down by guilt and fear. Arte scolds her for leaving behind unfinished work and inconveniencing the family shop. She sternly demands that Reze return home immediately. Dior steps in, declaring firmly that he cannot let Reze return home. Reze looks up at him in surprise. He dramatically claims he would waste away without her, though she finds it over the top. Dior prepares to present his next point. He produces a glowing magic stone pendant from his pocket. Reze gasps as she recognizes the item. Dior credits her creation for making him who he is today. He holds the precious pendant gently in his gloved hand. Although Reze thinks his story is a stretch, he insists she saved his life and encouraged him. Albert takes notice of the stone, admiring its impressive craft. Dior praises the piece, calling it extremely precious to him. Albert eagerly asks to take a closer look. Dior politely refuses, stating it is too precious to hand over to the prince. Albert examines another magic item in his hand. He recognizes the work as something crafted by Arte. Dior and Reze stand together as Albert compares the creations. Albert notes that Rize's stone is completely pure and crafted by an extraordinarily rare artisan. He concludes that her crafting skill is at least equivalent to Fafnir rank ability. This structured system of mage rankings outlines the clear hierarchy of magical power. Every mage in the kingdom is assigned to one of these 10 official ranks. Only 1 in 10,000 reaches witch class, while Arte marvels over dragon class, a level fewer than 1% of magic students ever achieve. Albert explains that climbing from the 7th rank up to dragon class takes incredible talent. Albert listens attentively while Arte struggles to comprehend the sheer scale of those numbers. Albert praises her skills, asserting that no one else in the entire country can duplicate her work. He notes that he has pushed her to take the certification exam, though she always resists. She teasingly replies that men are obsessed with rankings. He smiles and admits that her casual attitude is part of her charm. Albert reiterates how much he appreciates her demeanor as she looks at him affectionately. Arte ponders whether the magic stones she crafted were truly so extraordinary. She recalls how her mother became frighteningly strict right after she began creating those stones. No matter what items she produced, her mother withheld praise and focused entirely on scolding and worrying. She reflects on how that harsh treatment formed the entirety of her childhood memories. Gazing down at her hands, she realizes the true value of those magic stones. Dior steps closer and remarks that she seems remarkably happy. Reze snaps out of her thoughts and stammers in surprise. Dior observes dryly that chatting with Prince Albert must have been a delightful experience. Dior draws near Reze as they discuss official mage classifications. Reze asks if legendary class is part of the official rankings. Dior explains it is the 10th rank. He mentions that he holds the 2nd rank as dragon class. Dior offers to arrange the exam for her, and she considers how knowing her true rank could motivate her. She admits she wants to test her abilities if possible. Dior scoffs at others' lack of eye for talent. He assures her that she clearly belongs in the legendary class. Dior promises to set up the official test, and Reze readily agrees. An aristocratic woman interjects, commenting on how remarkably close they seem. She criticizes their rush to engage and visit his estate as highly improper. She insists they ought to maintain proper etiquette. Dior looks back at her in surprise while she asks if he was truly unaware. Standing in the royal hall alongside Reze, Dior turns to listen. He mentions how long he has been ordering tools from her shop, prompting Art to act shocked that he would pursue an unmarried girl so boldly. She then calls Reze aside for a private conversation. Arte asks Reze to have a quick chat with her. Dior claims his heart belongs completely to Reze. He warns that he would lose his mind and do anything to get her back if separated. His obsessive declaration leaves Arte feeling unsettled. Arte finds his sudden intensity deeply frightening. Flashbacks show Rize's past exhausting days at the shop. Arte corners Reze away from everyone else. Arte furiously confronts Reze about leaving the shop in ruins. She demands to know what Reze was thinking by disappearing. Reze tries to bring up her unpaid tuition fees. Arte cuts her off and harshly berates her for crying. She violently attacks Reze while demanding compensation for their business losses. She threatens to tell Prince Albert and have Reze executed. Arte commands Reze to tell the Duke she is returning home. Reze protests that she promised the Duke she would stay. Arte sighs and hands over a small poison bottle, ordering Reze to drink it. Reze stares at the mysterious bottle in total confusion. Arte explains the poison will cause slow, painful seizures. She promises the antidote only if Reze obeys and returns home. Reze recognizes the poison bottle from a past encounter. Arte orders her to lie to the Duke about needing treatment for a chronic illness. A brief flashback shows the assassin holding the exact same bottle. Reze suddenly realizes Arte was the one who sent the assassin after her. Arte insists she never intended to kill her, only to drag her back home. Reze gasps in realization, her suspicions fully confirmed by her sister's chilling words. She internally panics, realizing that Arte is completely out of her mind. Reze remembers how her sister secretly abused her in private since childhood. She knows normal family members would never inflict such cruelty on one another. Trembling in terror, Reze admits to herself just how terrified she is of Arte. Conditioned by years of fear, she feels compelled to obey and return home. Arte's psychological control runs so deep that defying her feels nearly impossible. Yet she knows that giving in means she will remain cursed forever. A gentle touch recalls the warmth and safety of the ducal estate. She remembers Dior telling her that her hand is precious and no longer hers alone. Dior stands tall and composed, offering an unshakable refuge from her painful past. Refusing to yield to her sister's abuse, Reze firmly rejects returning home. Vivid memories of her new home and caring companions light up her mind. With renewed conviction, Reze declares her burning desire to return to Dior's manor. She casts flax-spinning magic to strike back directly against her abuser. Arte gasps in shock as magical threads suddenly bind her tight. Bound tightly, Arte glares in sheer fury and demands to know how she dares treat her this way. She fumes from behind as Reze walks away, shouting that she will never let her get away with this. Addressing her older sister directly, Reze firmly declares that she will never return home. Outside, Liz looks around the castle grounds in shock. An injured Alti confronts her directly. Liz turns back in fear as Alti approaches. Liz tries to rush back to Duke Hospitalier. However, a sudden command stops her in her tracks as she struggles to return. Liz gasps as her body freezes up in frustration. Alte steps closer to her captive victim. Liz stares helpless at the villain who trapped her. Liz realizes her body is completely paralyzed. Alta calls her a hassle for using hypnosis magic tool. She explains that it is her sister's magic, despite warnings not to harm anyone with it. Smiling darkly, she insists there is no other choice. Alta complains that hypnosis magic can leave lasting mental after effects. She sinisterly urges Liz to just go to sleep. Alte claims that everything up until now was merely a bad dream. She assures Liz that upon waking up she will be back at the magic tool shop. Her hypnotic suggestions weave a false reality around the trapped girl. She whispers that an ordinary life will simply begin once more. Alti reminds her of how busy yet fun making magic tools used to be. Liz desperately fights the hypnotic voice in her head. Alti promises that the shop will prosper as the royal supplier, fulfilling Liz's dreams. Liz internally denies the illusions, refusing to believe her deceitful words. Alte continues promising that only wonderful, happy moments await her in the shop. She reassures her that any bad events will simply fade away into nothingness. Liz tearfully laments breaking her promise to Duke Hospitalier. Alt chants hypnotic spells of spinning and roving pleasure. She pulls Liz into deep unconsciousness, ordering her to fall fast asleep. Liz apologizes to Duke Hospitalier in her mind as her strength completely fails her. Duke Hospitalier suddenly arrives and demands an immediate halt to the confrontation. He explains he came to check on them after they took too long to return. He steps forward, watchful of the tense situation. Looking around, Duke Hospitalier sternly asks what is happening. The room falls into a heavy, quiet stillness. Liz addresses him hesitantly while Duke Hospitalier asks if they were fighting. Alta bristles with obvious frustration and anger. Alta stammers out a weak excuse, insisting nothing is wrong and she only needs to change. Duke Hospitalier approaches Liz to check on her condition. He asks if she is injured and Liz softly replies that she is fine. She attempts to reassure him that she is completely unhurt. He calls out to her formally and she responds attentively. Prince Albert steps in, suggesting Liz should return home at least once. Prince Albert looks on with a sincere, worried expression. Prince Albert claims Alte was deeply worried about Liz and cried over her. Liz inwardly scoffs at the fake tears and lies. She knows better than to believe those crocodile tears. Prince Albert asks Duke Hospitalier to forgive Alte and avoid unnecessary suffering. He urges them to think about how their family will be affected. He understands their desire to stay together but pleads with them to reconsider. Duke Hospitalier questions if anyone has noticed the true reality. He directly accuses Artemisia of abusing Liz all along. Prince Albert rejects the accusation in utter disbelief. He insists Walt would never commit such cruelty. He warns that making such dangerous jokes is not funny at all. The atmosphere grows heavier as Prince Albert refuses to accept the truth. Duke Hospitalier asks if Prince Albert noticed Liz walking strangely upon her return. Prince Albert admits he was not looking closely at her movements. Duke Hospitalier points out that he immediately recognized the signs of attack. He explains the assault was calculated to avoid visible facial bruising. He notes how the injuries were hidden beneath her corset, puffed skirt, and shapewear. The hidden blows targeted her bare skin directly. Meanwhile, Alte checks behind the building to carry out her scheme. She suddenly gasps in shock at an unexpected turn of events. She quickly feigns concern and apologizes, asking if the girl got hurt. Albert steps forward and calls out to Liz. Albert demands to know what Artemisia did to her. Duke Hospitalier clicks his tongue, promising to find a healer. He reassures Liz to hold on for a little longer. Artemisia claims that Liz tried to make her drink poison behind the building. She insists her sister wanted to make it look like a sudden illness flare-up. Artemisia says she smashed the bottle after grabbing it to force her back home. She warns everyone that sharp shards might still be scattered on the ground. Albert listens intently, weighing her fabrications with a solemn expression. Albert refuses to believe the story, claiming Alte would never do that. Albert hesitates before accusing Duke Hospitalier's group of inflicting those bruises. He suggests Liz could have broken the bottle herself. He claims she did it to frame her sister without anyone noticing. Liz despairs as the familiar pattern repeats. Albert insists that without seeing it himself, there is no real proof. Liz remembers how adults reacted whenever she complained about her sister's bullying as a child. The adults always defended Alte, insisting she would never do such things. They repeatedly told Liz to stop lying and blamed her instead. Memory images show adult hands comforting Artemisia while ignoring young Liz. Young Liz shrinks into herself in painful isolation. Liz inwardly wonders why nobody ever believes her. Duke Hospitalier calmly states that his answer remains clear regardless of the prince's wishes. He firmly refuses to return Liz to Artemisia or her birth family under any circumstances. Albert watches in stunned silence as Duke Hospitalier makes his stance unyielding. Duke Hospitalier lifts Liz gently in his arms to take her away. He softly expresses sympathy for her pain and apologizes for dragging her away so forcefully. The Duke promises to protect the young girl no matter what happens. He reiterates his firm vow to keep her safe from all harm. Duke Hospitalier carries Liz in his arms as he prepares to leave. He announces their immediate departure while Alte watches in disbelief, leaving her with one final stern warning before walking away. Prince Albert threatens severe consequences if Alte touches Liz again. Night falls over the Grand Palace as the tense confrontation finally comes to an end. Liz gasps in surprise as Dior carries her. Liz nervously worries about her weight. Dior dryly tells her to gain more weight before saying that. He orders Pierre to summon a healer immediately. Dior instructs the maid to help Liz change her clothes. He blames Liz's stubbornness for delaying treatment. Liz blushes, admitting she was too embarrassed to show her thin legs. Pierre urgently calls out to Lord Dior. The maid reports that an accident will delay the healer. She looks anxious about the situation. Dior decides it would be faster to treat Liz himself. He asks permission to check her injuries directly. The maid criticizes his complete lack of delicacy. Liz gasps nervously at his direct approach. Liz shyly apologizes while feeling self-conscious about her legs. Dior reassures Liz that this is strictly medical treatment without hidden motives. He gently asks if the treatment hurts. Liz admits it hurts a little but appreciates his gentle touch. The brilliant pure magic stone pendant glimmers brightly on its delicate chain. Duke Hospitalier looks back solemnly as he reflects on a past memory. Albert once noted that the magic stone looked decent. Dior solemnly warns Liz to remain extremely cautious around Prince Albert. He warns her not to believe anything the prince says. Liz admits the prince did not seem bad, though she feels a bit of pity for him. The Duke strictly reminds her to follow only his orders. Liz agrees, realizing the Duke listened to her and took her side. She looks at him and realizes she can truly trust this man. Duke Hospitalier approves as Liz quietly confirms her devotion. Liz is surprised as the Duke checks on her. He places a hand on her, noting her legs seem fine. He adds that Pierre will bring her a light meal soon. He instructs her to call him if her body feels unwell. Liz agrees, realizing he is actually very kind inside. However, Duke Hospitalier sternly orders her never to hide anything from him. Liz timidly responds while wondering why his expression is so intimidating. She clutches her chest nervously. Meanwhile, Alte realizes the Duke knows Liz is a crafting genius. She finds it unthinkable that such a pathetic girl possesses talent. She ponders why he hid that Liz made the magic stone, fearing the truth. Alte recalls the Duke's stoic demeanor. Alt realizes the Duke discovered Liz's rare ability. He called it too rare for Prince. She insists she is superior to Liz. Albert's obsession would make him recognize Liz. Alta clenches her jaw in frustration. Alti wonders if the Duke is hiding Liz from the prince. She laughs hysterically at the thought. That means she will stay favored by His Highness. Liz will have no stage left. She spitefully concludes that Liz is nothing more than her miserable slave. Creating a chameleon dress that changes colors freely requires a complex magical formula that no one has ever perfected. Prince Albert checks in on Arte, asking how the chameleon dress project is coming along. Arte stands before Prince Albert looking visibly troubled and hesitant. She apologizes profusely for keeping him waiting. Albert reassures her gently, surprised to see her struggling with the project. He listens quietly as she continues her explanation. Arte claims their shop relies on the whole family, falling apart without even one member. Prince Albert ponders her words while looking off thoughtfully. He wonders if Liz was truly that capable, having only asked her to do minor errands. He acknowledges those errands are still crucial and hopes she returns soon. Hearing his concern, Arte realizes the situation is turning dangerous for her secret. Arte stands quietly, her anxiety mounting internally. The setting shifts back to the workshop interior. Arte worries Albert has noticed Liz's talent, driving her to deliver results quickly. She tries to recall notes on color-changing magic weaves. She stops as an idea strikes her. She suddenly realizes what went wrong before. Certain materials act as insulators, requiring confidential methods to embed formulas. The main issue was not the dress design itself. It was the magic thread that caused the failure. Standard magic thread mixes magic power with raw material to improve strength and texture. Higher thread ratios make spinning easier, but advanced formulas cannot be embedded. The trade-off is reduced magic conductivity, which poses a major drawback. Arte realizes she needs thread made entirely of pure magic power to create the chameleon dress. Though unheard of, she suspects Liz might have researched pure magic thread like her magic stones. Having found no research notes earlier, Arte wonders if Liz hid them somewhere in the shop. She searches intently through the dark room, casting her sharp gaze around. She demands to know where the notes are hidden. Hoping for any clue, she decides to search even further. A single lit candle glows eerily amidst the unsettling atmosphere. As a magic candle drips and burns glowing flames, Arte commands Schnuffle to track them down like a dog. Small footprints mark the floor, tracing a quiet trail inside. The mysterious tracks continue down the hallway near a basket. Arte walks cautiously through the corridors, following the strange path. Her footsteps leave dark prints as she ventures deeper into the building. A sudden burst of energy echoes through the area. Ferreras praises Liz for running 3 kilometers and excitedly announces he found something. He offers his fur as a reward, claiming it cures diseases and telling her to treasure it. Liz thanks him warmly and plans to analyze the magic wolf's fur later, just as someone calls her. A maid inquires about what is happening. The maid informs Liz that the Duke is requesting her presence right away. The door to the estate study stands open. Dior announces that an official letter from First Prince Albert has arrived. Dior confirms the letter's origin while Liz worries if it is another summons. He clarifies that the prince's message concerns a different matter this time. The invitation invites them to the Magical Tools Festival, where a weave made entirely of magic power will be unveiled. Dyer hands the letter directly to Liz so she can read it herself. She gazes thoughtfully at the paper while standing near him in the study. He ponders the underlying principles of the magical invention. He asks if this magical weave is also her invention, and she confirms it is stolen research. He notes that this material woven from magic holds limitless potential, comparing it to her invisibility cloak, and she nods somberly as they discuss her stolen work. Liz explains how her sister always mocked her detailed research and serious studies. She finds it completely unbelievable that Artemisia could create such fabric herself. Dior points out that Artemisia most likely copied the formula directly from Liz's research notes. Liz remembers how Artemisia previously stole her designs and turned them into commercial products. Liz warns the Duke that Artemisia previously stole a product design, but this new stolen magical weave has a far more serious flaw. She warned her sister that it had not passed safety tests, but Artemisia completely ignored her. Liz stresses that the material is extremely dangerous and could cause fatal accidents if misused. Ever since then, she has been carefully hiding all of her incomplete research. Dior asks her to explain what makes the fabric so hazardous. Liz reveals that the material is extremely flammable. Liz demonstrates the delicate nature of the magic thread in her hand. Dior realizes that due to its delicate structure, the fabric easily catches fire when exposed even to tiny fire magic. A small flame spark hovers in the air above Liz's hand. Dior instructs Liz to summon a tiny magical flame and bring it closer to the fabric sample. Surprised, she carefully moves the flame toward the weave as requested. The fabric ignites instantly upon contact with the magical flame. Dior looks on intently as the fabric incinerates completely without leaving any ash. The fabric completely disappears into thin air as the fire consumes it. Liz points out how quickly it burst into flames and burned away without leaving a single trace behind. Dyer notes that embedding a fireproof formula would solve the issue, but Liz admits that advanced technique was too difficult for her to master alone. Liz warns that without such advanced protective formulas, they must prepare for the absolute worst outcome, as someone could easily be killed. Dior decides that they must investigate the venue personally, noting that an anti-magic barrier around the royal palace makes an accidental fire unlikely. Liz anxiously asks if there is any way they can simply cancel the upcoming event entirely. Dior replies that canceling is impossible because the organizer will not listen and they lack the political leverage to force it. Liz turns around anxiously as she considers the terrible danger of the event. Liz remains deeply uneasy about the potential disaster waiting to happen. Fearing a terrible accident, she turns to him to ask a favor. Meanwhile, the grand castle stands majestically under the night sky. Inside, Albert examines the fabric sample and marvels at its incredible quality. Albert contemplates the potential of the magical item by the window. Albert considers the unfinished garment revolutionary for their country's military advantage. He notes that the chameleon dress base is woven completely from magic to shift colors. He explains how color-shifting clothes would enhance ambush tactics and illusion magic in battle. Albert envisions the endless tactical possibilities of this new development. He praises Artie as a true genius and feels completely justified in trusting her. Albert smiles gently while looking out at the city below. Albert eagerly anticipates the official unveiling of the chameleon dress. The newly completed magic tool sits ready after hours of dedicated crafting. Reze proudly announces that she has finally finished her work. She reflects on how enjoyable it was to craft magic tools again. She admits it was a rushed effort that kept her awake all night. She worries how the Duke might react if he finds out. Suddenly, the Ice Duke calls out her name from behind. The Ice Duke looks down at her with a stern, watchful expression. Reze nervously greets him with overly formal speech to cover her exhaustion. He notes how early she is up and mentions Furious is still sleeping. Reze sweats anxiously under his intense seeing-through glare. He accuses her of staying up all night and reminds her of his threat to confiscate the tool. She stammers an apology, pleading that she simply got absorbed. She eagerly insists that she successfully finished the magic tool. The Ice Duke acknowledges the news with a calm expression. Reze promises to show him after making final adjustments. He firmly replies that harming her health is something he cannot overlook. She thanks him sincerely for granting permission to build the tool, warning him of its high flammability. She recalls her original plea when she asked to make the item. Reze explains that despite her research being stolen, she refuses to let her creations hurt anyone. She desperately implores the Duke to assist her. He recalls how she showed him magic tools can function even where magic is banned. Because of that knowledge, he was able to prepare an emergency countermeasure. The Ice Duke emphasizes that this exception applies to this single instance. She expresses gratitude for his hospitality while he reminds her she is still recovering. He strictly forbids her from crafting any more tools without his explicit consent. Reze enthusiastically agrees to obey his strict instructions now that she feels better. He adds a final ban against staying up all night again, causing her to apologize meekly. She bows her head submissively to his command. Time passes until the grand day of the magic tool unveiling party finally arrives. As the event begins, Reze hesitates, struggling to voice her overwhelming anxiety. She confesses her extreme nervousness, apologizing in advance in case her stomach gives out completely. The Ice Duke dryly advises her not to overeat, causing her to nervously agree. An attendant officially welcomes the Duke and Liz upon their arrival. A festival host announces the new color-changing mood fabric crafted by Artemisia. He encourages all attending guests to try wearing the sample mantles and capes. Liz calls out urgently to the Ice Duke, who reveals he already understands her concern. She excuses herself to step outside for fresh air, politely borrowing the sample garments. The Ice Duke readily agrees to follow her lead. They step out under the moonlight near the castle clock tower. Liz closely inspects the fabric of the borrowed mantle. She prepares to test the material's flammability. The Ice Duke asks if she can spot defect features instantly. Liz confirms the magical weave lacks fireproofing and suggests testing it with a tiny flame. The Ice Duke offers up his mantle for her test. A tiny spark instantly ignites the pure magic fabric into bright flames. Liz watches as her fear is immediately confirmed. She points out that while the magic weave burns away fast, it easily ignites normal clothing underneath. The Ice Duke agrees that anyone wearing it would burst into flames instantly. Liz stresses the need to prevent tragic fire accidents despite protective barriers. The Ice Duke notes that mixing magical threads weakens flame resistance across modern noble attire. Agreeing with his point, Liz prepares to present her prepared solution. The Ice Duke reacts in surprise as Liz reveals her outfit. Liz proudly shows off the fireproof magic dress she crafted specifically for safety. She further explains to him that her accessory contains sealed water magic. He admits he did not expect her to hide magic there, as she mentions setting it to douse anyone on fire, amusing him with her cleverness. She adds that she concealed the tool with a lightness magic formula so guards wouldn't take it, leaving him remarking that she never fails to surprise him. The Ice Duke notes his own magic will be limited at the venue. He gratefully accepts her tool just in case. He extends his hand to guide Reze into the venue. He warmly addresses her as his dear fiancé. Reze whispers, asking if they were done pretending to be lovers. The Ice Duke explains they do not need to detail their engagement to priors, claiming love is simply much easier. He reassures her that acting in love keeps suspicions away. Reze concedes to his logic as they enter the grand ballroom. Guests around them marvel at the lively atmosphere. Everyone seems eager for the night's festivities to start. The ballroom guests turn their gazes toward the entering couple. Onlookers whisper in astonishment upon seeing the Ice Duke. They wonder if the young lady by his side is his fiancée. The crowd continues to murmur Dior's name in surprise. Reze feels the overwhelming weight of their focused attention. Reze looks around nervously as the hushed chatter spreads through the hall. Reze anxiously gasps at how many people are glaring at her. The Ice Duke asks what is wrong and comforts her. He reminds her that all newcomers face this scrutiny in high society. He reassures her that high society is just a small world. He leans in close and instructs her to stay near him. Spectators gasp, thinking he is about to kiss her. Suddenly, a young woman shouts out Dior's name, interrupting them. The curly-haired lady angrily questions if Reze is the one Dior chose. A noble asks if anyone knows her, recognizing her instantly. Uraka introduces herself proudly as the daughter of the Central Knight Commander. Observers remark on how gorgeous and lovely she appears. Uraka bursts into tears, refusing to accept their engagement. She cries out that she has adored Dior for far longer. The young noble lady continues crying out in frustration, insisting she worked hard to be worthy of him. She tearfully demands to know why she cannot cry, calling Reze a pathetic runt while Reze tries to calm her down. Reze awkwardly stammers that she and the Duke are not actually getting married. She tries to explain that it is just a fake engagement before being cut off. The Ice Duke interrupts and asks for forgiveness on behalf of his beloved Reze. He draws close to Reze, catching her completely off guard. Reze nods nervously while he whispers to stick to the plan. He gently places his hand on her face, leaning in near her lips. Reze stammers his name in shock as he fondly addresses her. He asks if she is tired of the crowd and suggests going somewhere alone. She freezes in total embarrassment at his sudden affectionate display. The Ice Duke leans down and kisses Reze in front of everyone.
Uraka gasps in complete shock at the sudden kiss.
Overwhelmed by the sight, Uraka bursts into tears. She runs away wailing while an onlooker laughs at the drama. A man remarks that it was cruel, but the Duke casually promises to handle it later. An onlooker exclaims in disbelief at how cozy the Duke is getting with a girl. A nobleman remarks on how the famous Ice Duke has completely melted. Reze stares in disbelief at the sudden change in Dior. A familiar voice calls out to Dior, asking if his heart melted away. Dior looks over and recognizes the man as Lionel. Lionel greets Dior enthusiastically after a long time apart. He teases Dior about being lovey-dovey with Liz, prompting Dior to scold him. Lionel continues ribbing him about his taste in women. Lionel laughs off Dior's stern reaction. Confused by the sudden encounter, Liz asks Lord Dior who this lively person is. Dior simply introduces Lionel as a comrade in arms. Outraged by the blunt description, Lionel introduces himself to Liz and explains their war history. Lionel declares they are best friends who survived life and death together. Liz greets him nervously while Dior's inner voice doubts that best friend label. Lionel asks Liz if Dior stresses her out with his grumpy attitude. Liz assures him Dior is very kind, but Lionel wonders if she is forcing herself. Dior swiftly chops Lionel on the head to stop his nonsense. Lionel complains as he offers Liz to switch over to him instead. Dior tells him to shut up and strictly orders him to stay away from Liz. Lionel laughs it off as a joke and admits he is just glad Dior finally took interest in a lady. Dior cold shoulders him, leaving Lionel to mock how scary the Ice Duke is. Dior calls him the Mad Lion Commander, which Lionel finds cool. Watching them banter, Liz notes how well they get along. Lionel calls out to Lady Liz once more. Dior scolds Lionel again for addressing Liz, but Lionel playfully asks how they met. Dior sighs over his friend's refusal to listen. Lionel leaves to greet others, relieving Liz. Dior tells her she does not need to respond to him and warns that Lionel is dangerous. Liz wonders if Lionel is the same wild type of creature as Ferris. An announcement suddenly echoes across the venue, signaling that the presentation is starting. The speaker formally opens the Magical Tools Festival before the waiting crowd. He explains how the magic thread adjusts its color and sheen to match the wearer's will, asking if everyone received their cloaks at the entrance. He then introduces Prince Albert alongside his fiancée, the inventor Artemisia, as the audience prepares to welcome them. Albert and Artemisia step forward onto the grand stage. Onlookers admire Artemisia's beauty and praise her perfect match with the prince. Albert warmly greets the gathered crowd. Artemisia expresses her gratitude to the guests for attending the unveiling. She presents her latest magic tool invention to everyone present. Artemisia demonstrates her dress, showing off its ability to shift colors through red, blue, and yellow at will. She confirms it is made from the exact same material handed out to the crowd. Guests marvel at the chameleon-like dress coming to life right before their eyes. Albert smiles proudly alongside Artemisia as the spectacle continues. Albert declares that her inventions will bring true prosperity to the nation. He asserts that only Artemisia could accomplish such an impressive technological feat. Albert adds that both as a prince and as her fiancé, he takes immense pride in her. Artemisia smiles radiantly under the bright lights of the stage. Liz watches closely from the back of the venue. Dior notes quietly that the prince has no intention of warning anyone about the material's extreme flammability. Liz gasps as she notices a sudden distortion in the air behind her sister. Liz turns in shock as a dark, shadowy presence looms over the oblivious Artemisia. An ominous eye glares from the shadows right behind Artemisia's smiling face. She freezes as a familiar pair of eyes stares back down at her. Recognizing those cold eyes, she realizes the figure is the assassin maid and wonders what part of the body is being targeted this time. She then spots a seed flame magic tool held firmly in the attacker's hand. Someone shouts out a desperate warning for everyone to watch out. Artemisia screams in terror as flames burst near her. Prince Albert calls out her name in concern as she gasps in confusion. Liz realizes the situation is turning dire and wonders what just occurred. Sparks are rapidly spreading toward the audience near the stage. Concerned for Lady Artemisia, she urgently shouts for someone to extinguish the fire. Duke Dior calls out Liz's name sharply through the chaos. Liz celebrates as she activates her countermeasure magic tool. A sudden rush of magical energy activates across the venue floor. The magical tool releases a powerful containment wave that smothers the flames. The magic spreads rapidly, dousing all the scattered fire across the entire hall. Liz catches her breath and feels relieved that the fire is mostly extinguished. She realizes the enemy is using her stolen cloak of concealment to hide. That cloak is how the culprit managed to sneak close to her uncle. She urges that they must apprehend the perpetrator immediately. Liz turns toward Duke Dior to coordinate their next move. Liz turns to Dior while the crowd remains in commotion. Liz declares that she will pursue the culprit who caused the blaze. She asks Dior to handle the scene since remaining embers might still ignite. She explains that the culprit is the fake maid who broke into the manor. Because the assassin is using her thread of magic weave, Liz can still trace her presence. Dior demands to know what she is planning to do next. He sternly instructs her to stay safe while he prepares to follow. Lionel calls out to him, prompting the Duke to note his ally's timely arrival. As Lionel requests assistance, Dior firmly confirms he is ready to help. A sharp clicking sound echoes nearby as Liz stands alone in the hallway. She focuses her mind, determined to track down the target. She realizes that tracing the residual trail of her own magic power will lead her directly to the target. Closing her eyes, she concentrates deeply to sense the faint magical vibrations. She steps outside onto the balcony, looking toward the moonlit courtyard. The grand estate sits quiet under the night sky as she searches the area. Observing the hidden spot, she notes that her opponent did not flee after all. Her gaze locks onto a shadowy figure standing silently near the fountain. She approaches the courtyard garden where the mysterious figure waits. Her expression hardens with resolve as she steps into the moonlight. The cloaked individual adjusts their hood in the shadow of the fountain. They turn slowly to face Liz as the full moon shines above. Liz confronts the fake assassin posing as Kurumi, declaring that she found her. The adversary smirks and greets Zena's granddaughter as their dangerous reunion begins. Flashbacks show the presentation event underway. Kurumi recalls how her stolen magic tool research had been presented. However, safety flaws in the stolen design caused a dangerous accident. Fortunately, her prepared fire extinguisher magic tool stopped the fire from spreading further. Kurumi turns around to face the intruder. She confronts the fake assassin who recognizes her as Zena's granddaughter. Dismissing her own identity, the assassin is asked by Kurumi why she started the fire. The mysterious woman looks down coldly. Kurumi questions who her employer could be. Kurumi asks about her client after praising the invisibility cloak. The assassin explains her employer fears the prince acquiring such dangerous tools. She calls the cloak terrifying and insists royal hands must never hold it. Kurumi listens closely to the assassin's explanation. Kurumi asks if the employer holds a grudge against the royals, but the assassin mocks the poorly made tool. The cloaked woman refuses to reveal more details. She predicts the incident will shrink the nation's magic tool development. Kurumi watches nervously as the intruder steps closer. The assassin declares that magic toolmakers like Kurumi cannot be left alive. Kurumi gasps as the assassin strikes swiftly. Kurumi dodges away to gain distance. Realizing she is outside the barrier, Kurumi prepares to cast magic. Kurumi gasps in surprise at going so fast. The assassin sees through Kurumi's method of embedding magic circles with everyday magic. She dismisses the trick once its original source is known. Warning her not to fight back, she claims she does not want to hurt her hands. Suddenly, she wonders if the attacker intends to kidnap her. She recognizes the true nature of the magic tool being used. Looking down in shock, she sees her hands firmly restrained. She panics upon recognizing the magic sealing cuffs locked on her wrists. The attacker threatens that hidden blades inside the cuffs will sever her wrists if she resists. Kurumi realizes her magic power is completely blocked. She struggles in vain against the magic sealing tools. She groans in pain while trying to process her predicament. She despairs, realizing she cannot cast magic in this bound condition. She desperately wonders how she can possibly escape. She inspects the cuffs and recognizes them as standard knight equipment. She deduces that the threat of a hidden blade is merely a bluff. Knowing the cuffs are non-lethal, Kurumi decides to take a drastic risk. Her assailant startles as Kurumi intentionally forces her wrists against the metal edge. She snaps the mechanism forcefully, causing blood to drip onto her gloves. Using her own blood, she draws a magical formula directly on the cloth. Bright light erupts from the drawn blood circle as it activates. The attacker gasps as the magic unlocks the restraints instantly. The shocked attacker stammers in disbelief at what just happened. Kurumi steps back swiftly after breaking free from the cuffs. The assailant reels back from the sudden counterattack. Kurumi prepares her next spell with fierce determination. The attacker realizes Kurumi drew a magic circle using her blood. She is shocked that Kurumi turned her gloves into active magic tools. Ignition magic bursts forth, causing the attacker to cry out in alarm. Kurumi coldly declares the power of her craftsmanship. Kurumi unleashes a powerful blast of magic, overwhelming her attacker who screams in pain. The force of the spell blows the assailant away completely. With her foe defeated, Kurumi calls out for someone to send help. Checking herself, she notes that she made the inner lining of her outfit fire-resistant. She turns in surprise, realizing that the surrounding flames have completely extinguished. Meanwhile, the masked attacker sinisterly admits to knowing the new material's inherent weakness. He restrains Kurumi from behind and mocks her, calling her a true legend. A sharp fragment falls into the pitch-black void. Kurumi tries not to inhale the gas while the assailant claims bringing her back will make someone happy. Overcome by the fumes, Kurumi feels her breathing stop as her strength fades. Heavy footsteps echo nearby as an imposing aura suddenly fills the courtyard. A voice suddenly booms out from the darkness, demanding to know what he is doing. A heavy boot steps out from the darkness onto the stone path. Dior glares furiously, shouting in anger at the villain who dares harm his Liz. Kurumi turns around in shock as a sudden disruption interrupts the quiet night. Dior steps forward with his hand outstretched, urgently asking Kurumi if she is all right. She whispers his name softly as the immediate chaos subsides. She looks toward him with deep relief after surviving the danger. Asking about her attacker, she reassures him that she is unharmed while he confirms he spared the assassin's life. Dior will take the assassin into custody for medical treatment. He emphasizes that she must answer their questions and atone for her crime. Dior suddenly notices something unusual on Kurumi and pauses in alarm. He demands to know what happened to her damaged hand. Kurumi hesitates, sheepishly dismissing it as a brief struggle with the assassin. Dior reacts with disbelief, shouting that her state is far worse than a simple scuffle. He insists her injuries take priority over taking the criminal to the military police. Kurumi softly agrees to be treated. Dior checks that she is stable while she expresses her gratitude. Kurumi asks where they are, and a medical officer explains that this temporary clinic allows limited healing magic. Dior credits Kurumi's magic tool for preventing casualties after fires were set everywhere. He explains that most of the flames were safely put out before spreading. Kurumi sighs in relief, happy that her creation proved useful. Dior sternly brings up the severe issue regarding the new fabric dress. Artemisia rages furiously, refusing to accept the situation. Artemisia demands a better doctor at once as the attendant tries to calm her down. She screams out her ambition that she will be queen one day. A severe report reveals she suffered extensive burns across her entire body. Artemisia despairs in the dark, lamenting that her value is lost without her beauty. Lying face down on the bed with severe marks, she feels completely ruined. Kurumi watches her sister in silence with a worried, pained expression. She quietly whispers for her big sister. The day after the presentation, Liz and Lord Dior are summoned to the royal palace under the pretense of investigating the incident. They greet the monarch respectfully upon entering the throne room. His Majesty notes that it has been a while since they last met. The king confirms her identity as Artemisia's younger sister. Liz, nervous, confirms her name and introduces herself. Liz explains everything to His Majesty, starting from when she first received the invitation. The king orders Liz to detail the entire incident in chronological order. He sternly demands to know how she recognized the invention as her own so quickly. Liz hesitates, caught off guard by the sharp question. His Majesty warns her to speak truthfully or face criminal charges. Liz remembers how her notes had been taken from her. She explains that her research notes had been stolen. Liz realized her work was copied as soon as she saw the invitation details. She fears her sister does not comprehend how dangerous the invention is, which Dior agrees with. The king asks Dior if he stepped in to protect Liz after learning the truth. Dior confirms it while Liz nervously asks about her sister's fate. His Majesty bluntly tells her that she is in no position to ask questions. The king commends them for their actions. He concludes the inquiry and invites them to lunch in the dining hall while Liz quietly apologizes. Liz realizes she is merely considered a witness in the whole affair. She suddenly reacts with surprise upon hearing the mention of food. Liz turns to Dior as a lavish meal is served. She marvels loudly at the delicious dish served before her. Dior clarifies that the meal features foie gras and truffles, offering to have his chef prepare it for her again, while she vows to engrave its rich flavor into her memory, though he dryly advises her to just remember its name instead. Shortly after eating, the young girl groans in sudden distress, prompting him to ask if she is about to throw up again. She sheepishly asks if she could take the remainder of her food home. Although the food tastes incredible, she winces that her tight corset prevents her from finishing it. Leaving such a treat behind is painful, but she simply cannot eat another bite. Dior suggests that she simply ask the staff to wrap it up. Encouraged, Liz excitedly calls over the butler to make her request. The butler politely listens as Dior and Liz finish their dining arrangements. Liz clasps her hands together and begs the butler pleadingly. Her gaze softens as her thoughts turn toward the gravity of the recent incident. Dior credits her bravery for saving countless lives during the disaster. He notes that the public will likely never learn the truth about what happened. He admits that her extraordinary talents will remain unrecognized by official channels for now. Even so, he gazes at her warmly and commends her fine work. He dryly scolds her dangerous habit of rushing into peril alone, taking her by surprise. Dior reflects that the entire crisis began because his own research was stolen. Liz gently counters that any assistance she provided was only possible because of his support. She smiles brightly and expresses her heartfelt gratitude for how he is always by her side. Liz enthusiastically praises the ice magic he used against the assassin. She eagerly asks how he manages to perform such incredible spells. She describes his magic as immensely powerful yet surprisingly delicate in its shine. She struggles to find the exact words for how gentle it feels. Ultimately, she confesses that his magic feels remarkably warm to her. Dior questions how cold ice magic could ever be considered warm. Liz insists firmly that it truly feels warm to her. Dior solemnly reminds her of the lives he harmed during the past war. Liz reassures him that his actions saved far more people than he hurt. She explains that his presence brings peace to her heart and makes her feel completely safe. With a glowing smile, she compares his comforting magic to a warm, home-cooked meal. She continues to praise him, expressing her deep admiration for his impressive magic. He glares intensely as dark memories flash through his mind. Flattering voices echo in his memory, praising his magic and seeking his favor. Dior quietly murmurs that he is glad to be engaged to Liz. Surprised, Liz asks if he said something, but Dior brushes it off immediately. A carriage rolls down the road past picturesque country fields. Inside the carriage, Dior quietly sips his tea in thought. He turns to Liz and asks what is on her mind. Liz hesitates for a moment before admitting that she has a request for him. She looks away anxiously, trying to gather the courage to speak. Liz closes her eyes, steeling her resolve before making her plea. She earnestly asks Dior if he can heal her sister's severe burn injuries. Dior responds coldly that he is a magician rather than a healer. Liz presses on, complimenting his magic and hoping he could heal her sister too. Dior stares back solemnly without changing his stern expression. Liz gasps as Dior explains that severely damaged skin can never truly be restored. Dior explains that pigmentation remains permanently and apologizes to her. He notes her sister will stay scarred, reminding her of Artemisia's anguished words about losing her value. Dior quietly acknowledges the grim situation with a solemn response. A caption marks the passage of time following the incident. He recalls how the incident was officially ruled as an unfortunate manipulation by an anti-state organization based on his testimony. Meanwhile, the captured assassin remains securely locked away, refusing to spill any information about the mastermind. Liz notes that Prince Albert has kept her in the dark, only learning through Dior that the culprit is confined in the palace. Because of a strict gag order, the terrible incident never reaches the newspapers or turns into public rumors. Life quietly moves forward in the city while the truth remains buried. Days pass as the dark secrets stay hidden from the general public. Gradually, daily routine returns to normal for everyone around her, though lingering doubts still remain. She reflects sadly that her sister Artemisia must still be suffering terribly from her severe burn wounds. The exterior of the shop stands quietly under the afternoon sky. Inside, young Liz remembers a past moment with her late grandmother. Young Liz shows her cut finger to her grandmother, who gently inspects the small wound after hearing her cry out in pain. Her grandmother looks down tenderly while preparing to offer important advice. Her grandmother strictly warns Liz never to spin magical thread with a cut hand because it will fuse permanently to her skin. Surprised, young Liz asks if magical silk truly sticks to human flesh. Her grandmother explains that silk resembles human skin so closely that under specific conditions it merges and becomes real flesh. Liz wonders aloud how such a transformation is possible. The old woman urges Liz to remember this vital secret whenever someone suffers a life-threatening wound. Liz lies awake in bed as the memory echoes in her mind. She realizes this method is meant for severe injuries when bleeding will not stop. Liz scolds herself for forgetting such crucial knowledge until this moment. She realizes she must apply the pure magical weave to heal Artemisia's skin. She tries to recall the specific conditions mentioned in the magical tool encyclopedia left by her grandmother. The book's first page detailed instructions on crafting the mythical bridle of Gleipnir. It described an artifact created from impossible materials that shouldn't exist in reality. Although her parents dismissed the book as childish nonsense, young Liz was completely mesmerized by its fantastical entries. After her grandmother passed away, shop work overwhelmed Liz and pushed those memories aside. She concentrates hard, trying to piece together the exact text recorded in that ancient book. Suddenly, Liz remembers the exact technique required, known as selkie skin. Liz quickly begins searching through her desk notes to prepare the blueprint. Paper sheets cover the room as she frantically works on her plans late into the night. Hearing a sudden knock at her door, Liz calls out for the visitor to enter. A polite knock sounds before Riviere steps into the room, excusing his late intrusion. She hesitantly addresses him, starting to bring up a new idea. He looks up, intrigued enough to ask her to explain further. She hands over a paper and asks if he would take a look at it. Examining the document, Dor realizes it is a blueprint for a magical tool. Liz notes that a skilled mage like him would recognize its fairy tale qualities immediately. He agrees, modest about how an average magician might view it. He identifies it as selkie skin, explaining how it creates artificial magic weave to match a crest. Dior adds that this technique reduces burn visibility, recalling a foreign paper he once read. He explains that weaving animal-based magic thread requires high craftsmanship, claiming no local artisan could do it. Liz interrupts confidently, declaring that she can handle the crafting herself. She emphasizes that her grandmother drilled these techniques into her. Dior is quietly impressed by her claim. Looking at Liz, Dior acknowledges her remarkable genius. A close view shows delicate feet stepping forward. Dior asks why they should go so far for Artemisia when she brought this on herself. Liz counters that while she can make the artificial skin, they will still need a doctor for the transplant. Liz clutches her dress hem, trembling as she speaks. She begs Lord Dior for his help, confessing her deep fears. Dior argues that Artemisia's plagiarizing and failed magic make leaving her alone the best choice. He warns that if the royals learn she lied, nobody will save or care about her. Liz bows her head, fighting back tears. Liz passionately vows that she will care and worry about her sister for the rest of her life. She reflects on how terrifying Artemisia has always been to her throughout her life. She constantly worries about her sister's glare and took over all her chores out of fear, obeying every order and enduring skipped meals in silence to escape abuse. Lost in these painful memories, she stands silent. She admits that even if Artemisia vanished entirely, she would remain terrified of her. Seeing her sister burned and weeping only confirmed that Artemisia would blame her. Her sister would accuse her of inventing something strange that ruined her. Even though Artemisia stole the tool, she would still shift all the blame onto Liz. Liz keeps enduring constant blame from the mental image of her sister. She longs for that haunting presence to disappear from her mind. More than a decade of suffering under her sister cannot vanish easily. However, healing her burns would at least remove Artemisia's excuse to blame her. Whatever becomes of Artemisia afterward is no longer her concern. Dior agrees that Artemisia's ultimate fate has nothing to do with her. Liz resolves to completely drive her sister out of her heart. She spent her life being called completely useless by others. If she creates an irreplicable magic tool, she can finally feel true pride. Dior gazes at her with deep understanding. Liz feels that she might finally believe in herself. She realizes she is not useless and no longer needs to obey her sister. Dior notes that Artemisia's condition is not as severe as it could be. He knows 3 individuals with light burn scars, including a high-ranking noble. Assisting in their treatment will secure Liz the finest doctor available. He suggests using Artemisia as the test subject to serve as a convenient cover. Liz gazes at Dior with deep gratitude and thanks him profusely. Dior adds that preparing proper measures will help clean up the incident smoothly. Nadine acknowledges his plan and offers to advise His Majesty directly. She then urges them to get everything ready without delay. Outside, the Grand Palace grounds stand quiet and serene. Dior looks on in silence as the doctor arrives. Liz prepares herself to meet the famous medical expert. Liz mentions that she asked for the best doctor available. Nadine greets Dior cheerfully after a long time. Liz is immediately struck by how stunningly beautiful the doctor is. She marvels that Nadine is the most gorgeous female doctor she has ever seen. Nadine boasts that no doctor excels more in beauty than herself. Dior merely sighs, remarking that he knew she would end up coming. Liz asks Dior if he already knows the doctor. Nadine dramatically gasps at Dior's cold attitude towards her. She introduces herself properly to Liz as Nadine Arndt. Dior bluntly reveals that the glamorous doctor is actually his grandmother. Liz stares in complete shock at the surprising announcement. Dior stands emotionless while Liz tries to process the revelation. Nadine casually mentions that she has been quite popular recently. Dior buries his face in his hand at his grandmother's teasing antics. Nadine confesses that she wants to run skin experiments on Dior. Dior explains that their family line has researched immortality for generations, causing all female members to look ageless. Nadine complains that Dior no longer lets her experiment on him. She recalls how he used to let her do whatever she wanted when he was small. Liz marvels at how extraordinary Lord Dior's family truly is. Liz introduces herself politely to Nadine. Nadine recognizes her as the rumored fiancé. Nadine mentions seeing Liz's research blueprint for restoring damaged skin. She expresses awe at Liz's incredible talent. She finds the potential treatment truly fascinating if it actually succeeds. Nadine eagerly offers her assistance with the treatment. Liz gladly accepts her help and states she would be honored. Nadine smiles warmly and invites Lady Liz to head out together. They walk together down the quiet palace hallway toward the medical ward. They arrive outside the hospital room where Artemisia is resting. Dior offers to escort Liz to the hospital room where her injured sister is staying. Their treatment plan relies on a legendary technique known as Selkie skin. This method only appears in the magical item encyclopedia belonging to Xena, Liz's grandmother. Regenerating human skin requires matching the wavelength of the injured person's magic crest. By copying that crest and weaving it into magical magweave cloth, an artificial skin is created. Though legendary, the process demands an artisan skilled enough to match another person's crest perfectly. Aside from Liz herself, no artisan in the entire country possesses such rare skill. Noticing her tension, Dior gently asks if she is feeling all right. Liz admits feeling nervous about seeing her sister after so long, and Dior urges her not to push herself. Reassuring him, Liz declares that she is determined to move forward. She trails off as she turns her gaze warmly toward him. Liz smiles brightly, knowing she can stay strong because Lord Dyer stands right by her side. Dior confirms her words with a soft nod as they reach the room. Someone knocks on the door before gently opening it. Nadine enters the room and greets Artemisia warmly, asking how she feels. Resting in bed, Artemisia turns to acknowledge the doctor's arrival. She lets out a weary sigh from her hospital bed. Liz steps into the hospital room behind Nadine. Artemisia gasps in shock at seeing her sister, while Liz softly greets her after such a long time apart. She snaps in disbelief as she stares at Liz. She angrily accuses her sister of coming merely to mock her pathetic state. Liz stays quiet while Artemisia continues to lash out. Desperate to prove her strength, Artemisia hurls a magical spell forward. A dark, shadowy manifestation lunges forward to attack. Liz observes Artemisia's weakened state and notes her crest remains intact. Artemisia glowers with utter fury at her younger sister's calm demeanor. Liz offers a gentle smile, promising to heal her burns beautifully. Artemisia rejects the offer in disgust, screaming that Liz is just a pathetic loser. Clinging desperately to her pride, Artemisia shrieks that she remains far more beautiful despite her severe burns. A flashback begins to 8 years prior at the shop, recalling Artemisia as a polite and admired young girl. A young Artemisia gracefully thanks a customer, praising her beauty, talent, and shop assistance. Her father Riviere proudly chuckles along with the glowing compliments. At 9 years old, customers suggest enrolling Artemisia in the prestigious Magic Academy. They mention that Prince Albert himself will be joining the same institution. Artemisia ponders the idea of attending the Magic Academy with deep interest. Young Liz looks up in awe at her elder sister's perfection. 7-year-old Liz admires Artemisia for helping so many important shop customers. Artemisia sharply agrees that Liz could never handle the counter like her. Artemisia impatience grows as she orders Liz to quickly finish up her work. Liz stammers an apology while Artemisia inwardly considers herself special and fundamentally superior to her sister. Recalling the past, Artemisia demands to know what Liz is holding and identifies it as a high-purity magic stone. Liz excitedly shares that their grandmother praised the stone, explaining that selling it will ease their lives. She adds that the money will buy better medicine for their sick grandmother. Artemisia slaps the magical creation out of Liz's hand, sending it crashing to the floor. Artemisia scolds her sister for wasting time on junk instead of working. She considers her little sister a genius at crafting tools. She claims talent is useless without social charm, but Artemisia dismisses that idea entirely. Artemisia stands arrogantly over her younger sister, asserting her self-proclaimed superiority. Artemisia vows to exploit Liz's genius for her own benefit. She asserts that her beauty entitles her to happiness over her sister. Artemisia looks down with cold disdain from high above. Artemisia vows to sink Liz deep beneath her. She promises to prove her dominance with her own body. She sneers that Liz should feel glad to serve as fuel for her sister's success. Yet the reality of the situation takes an unexpected turn. Artemisia demands to know why Liz is smiling at a time like this. Liz gasps in quiet realization. She suddenly recognizes her sister's true feeling. Liz clutches her arm nervously as tension fills the room. She points out that Artemisia was secretly terrified of her all along. Prince Albert looks on in solemn quietness. Liz looks back with clear, unshakable eyes. Liz finally understands everything. She sees that Artemisia crushed her only to mask her own weakness and false bravado. She pities her cowardly, pathetic sister. Artemisia sits alone in utter humiliation. Liz notes how Artemisia trembled while watching her suffer attacks from others. Artemisia turns away in silent shame. Liz offers gentle words of comfort. She knows Artemisia feared becoming the next victim. Liz reassures Artemisia that she refuses to seek revenge. She addresses her sister softly. Standing alongside dear Liz prepares to begin the delicate procedure. An assistant confirms the crest is stable, and Nadine instructs her to test the prototype skin piece. Nadine urges her to go forward, determined to help her grow stronger. Liz reflects silently on the artificial skin she worked so hard to create. The initial test transplants yield promising results with no complications whatsoever. Artemisia gazes into a mirror, stunned to see her reflection. She marvels at her restored face. With tests complete, they decide to move forward with the real procedure. Artemisia eagerly asks if her beauty will truly be completely restored like before. Lying in bed, Artemisia realizes her long-awaited dream is finally within reach. Liz quietly reminds her that she personally crafted this artificial skin. Nadine asks if Artemisia is satisfied with the outcome. Dior adds that Nadine personally performed the surgery. Artemisia joyfully confirms that the results are absolutely perfect. Overcome with emotion, Artemisia tearfully thanks Liz for saving her. She then turns her heartfelt gratitude toward Nadine as well. Artemisia reaches out in a gesture of reconciliation. Liz looks down coolly at her sister's offered hand. Liz flatly rejects her. Artemisia calls out, pleading to work together as true sisters from now on. Liz coldly notes this is the very first time Artemisia has ever thanked her. Liz bids her a final farewell. She tells Artemisia that she must now pay for her past sins. Dior steps forward to deliver the harsh truth. Dior reveals that this facility is managed directly by the royal palace. Prince Albert enters and announces that Artemisia will be imprisoned now that the trial succeeds. Shocked, Artemisia stammers in confusion. She desperately asks what clinical trials they are talking about. She screams in disbelief, insisting the prince granted her treatment and forgiveness so she cannot be imprisoned. Dior coldly counters that deceiving the royal family carries an inescapable sentence for her severe crimes. Liz points out that Prince Albert himself approved this outcome. Artemisia mutters in denial that it must all be a lie. Dior informs her that with her treatment finished, nothing connects them anymore before declaring goodbye. Liz looks down gloomily as Artemisia slumps over her bed in utter defeat. Stepping out into the hallway, Liz lets out a long sigh of relief. She groans softly, confessing how exhausted she feels after everything. Dior asks if they are completely finished here. Liz smiles brightly and agrees that it's time to head back to the mansion. She gently reaches out her hand as they prepare to leave. He praises her softly for doing so well throughout the ordeal. She closes her eyes softly, leaning comfortably into his gentle touch. She smiles contentedly, reflecting that having a home to return to means she is no longer afraid. Liz floats in a gentle warmth, recalling how she cut ties after her sister was treated. The warmth surrounds her completely, feeling just like a cozy cradle. She wonders what took place after that moment. Dior notes that Liz is awake, explaining he carried her after she fell asleep in the carriage. Liz apologizes frantically, worrying that she must have been terribly heavy for him. Dior reassures her that she feels healthier and teasingly asks if he should keep holding her to check her condition. Liz stammers nervously that she is fine with just this much. Dior stares down intensely at Liz as she looks away nervously. Dior tells her to sleep more, though he admits he gets absorbed when crafting magic tools. Liz insists she has been eating well and sleeping 8 hours, allowing the 8th silky skin to progress smoothly. Dior sternly states that her body is her foundation and accepts no excuses, prompting Liz to apologize obediently. Dior mentions having a gift for her, though he pretends she might not need it anymore. He teases her further while Liz urgently demands to know what it is. Dior prepares to hand over a piece of paper to Liz. Dior hands it over while warning he will not give gifts to anyone who neglects their health. Liz promises to work even harder and wonders if the present is food. Liz gazes at the document in utter surprise. Dior reveals that he bought her family's magic tool shop at an auction. Liz gasps at the word auction and Dior explains the property was mortgaged so he went all in to buy it. Hesitantly, Liz asks him what happened to her mother and father. Dior explains that dark rumors about her sister forced the shop toward closure after the fire, and her parents' current location remains untraceable. Liz laments ruining her grandmother's precious shop, while Dior adds that her parents fled to a distant island to escape their debt. Liz cries out in shock upon hearing about the debt, unaware things had gotten so bad. Dior calmly mentions that he has already cleared most of that debt himself. Liz recalls her parents wishing to live like nobles on a cheap southern island. Dior confirms bank records show they took enough money for boat fare, reassuring her of their safety as she apologizes for everything. She insists on working to pay back both the auction money and her parents' debt, but he assures her they will track her parents down to collect the money. He tells her not to overwork herself as it would harm her health. He simply urges her not to worry about it. Liz remarks that he is far too generous with his money, as expected of a noble. Dior explains that his family is extremely wealthy and that he receives steady income plus vast rewards from war. Liz feels guilty taking such a huge sum in advance, knowing it equals years of a commoner's income. Seeing her discomfort, Dior ponders a moment and proposes an alternative idea. Liz looks at him in surprise as he speaks. Liz is thrilled to learn she can reopen her shop. Dior advises her to run it at a comfortable pace and just treat him to a meal once in a while. He confirms that's why he bought the place, despite the painful memories associated with it. Liz tearfully thanks him. Overjoyed, returned to the shop where she created magic tools with her grandmother. Dior gazes at her warmly as she remembers her late grandmother. Liz promises to treat Dior to every restaurant in the capital. He lightheartedly teases her about her obsession with food. Later, Liz asks Ferris to drop a ball into a strange device. Ferris eyes the weird device with suspicion. Ferris accuses her of setting a trap to defeat him, but Liz loudly denies it. Liz demonstrates the device herself by placing the ball inside. Ferris gasps in shock as the ball launches high into the air. He excitedly leaps up to catch the flying ball. Liz explains that it is a magic tool designed to repel bugs while Ferris cheers. Liz proudly presents her creation and Dior praises her for an amazing job. She then presents another new invention, an automatic ball catcher. Ferris realizes he can play fetch all by himself, which she confirms was her exact intention. She notes that she crafted it so he could play freely on his own. As shop preparations begin, Liz explains she may have less time for regular walks. Ferris plays happily with the magic automatic fetch tool. Liz reflects on how her magical burn healed thanks to Lord Dior. She considers that their fake engagement is no longer necessary now that she is free. Liz stands alone, thinking back on her broken shackles. She acknowledges how popular Lord Dior is with many people. Self-conscious, Liz feels plain and believes Dior deserves to marry someone he truly loves. She worries that staying engaged will only stand in his way. Liz concludes it might finally be time for her to step away. Treatments for burn victims move forward as clinical trials continue smoothly. Liz agrees to help treat patients, including her sister, before meeting her last patient. She wonders out loud why this specific person is deemed so important. Some time passes following those events. A companion confirms the identity of the girl who had cried earlier. They mention the pretty blonde girl with curly hair. Dior explains her name is Uraka and she was caught in the same accident. He notes she is the daughter of the Central Knight Commander, surprising Liz. The Central Knight Order is famous for being the strongest order in the kingdom. Their vast monster subjugations have earned their commander the nickname Vice King. Dior grimly warns that failing this treatment could cost him his head. Noticing she seems unfazed, he asks what she really thinks of Uraka. Liz points out that Uraka seemed genuinely devoted to him, though he casually dismisses her as a troublesome match. He adds that receiving his ducal title from the king aligned him directly with the royalist faction. Dior reflects silently as they walk together. Liz realizes the background political pressure he faced. Dior admits he pretended to hate women to fend off endless suitors. He notes that beyond political strategy, he simply had his own personal preferences. Dior complains that Lady Uraka's pride is towering and makes her troublesome. Liz curiously wonders if Uraka's pride exceeds her own sister's. Dior dryly acknowledges that it is a surprisingly close contest. Liz hopes Uraka will not be terrifying, wondering if Dior's feelings might change over time. She silently admits to herself that wanting to remain by his side might just be a selfish dream. Dior interrupts her thoughts to announce that they have finally arrived at their destination. They stand before the Grand Central Night Estate. Liz pauses briefly to take in her current situation. She reflects on the turn of events while looking back. She celebrates internally that she has successfully managed to keep her job working for Lord Dior. Uraka lounges cross-legged in her robe and demands to know if Liz will truly take responsibility for her sister's scandal. Liz lowers her head and offers a deeply sincere apology. Uraka snaps back that a simple apology will never fix the damage done. Dior glances over indifferently as Liz bows profusely before the noblewoman. Uraka points frantically to her scar while Liz despairs at the situation. Uraka dramatically pulls open her robe to show the mark on her chest, panicking over potential permanent scarring. Liz frantically begs her to cover herself up right away. After the door slams shut, Uraka groans in frustration and sinks into a pout. Uraka suddenly explodes in frustration, furious that Dior completely ignored her. Liz tries to interject, but the noblewoman continues raging about how he did not even glance her way. Uraka wonders out loud if Dior simply lacks interest in women's bodies. Liz timidly recalls that Dior mentioned something about political reasons. Liz reassures Uraka that she is extraordinarily beautiful and should remain confident in herself. Uraka bursts into tears, leaving Liz utterly bewildered. Uraka suddenly asserts her noble status and demands that Liz know her place as a commoner. Liz quietly apologizes once again. Liz reflects on receiving this unfair blame, realizing it feels familiar from her time with her older sister. Uraka softens her tone and apologizes for taking out her frustration on Liz. She admits she never wanted to hate her in the first place. Uraka tears up as she confesses that she cannot manage her own emotions properly. Liz listens quietly as Uraka continues to open up. She finds the young noble lady cute for being able to apologize, admitting she has heard rumors about her as well. Noting Uraka's superior bloodline as the former king's granddaughter, she feels she stands no chance against her for Dior's affection. Uraka confesses that even so, she simply could not give up. She apologizes for acting shamelessly despite knowing Liz is Dior's fiancé. Liz praises Uraka's kindness and offers her encouraging words to make things right. Uraka warmly thanks Liz for her gentle kindness. She regrets saying rude things before when Liz still came to heal her. Uraka tears up in gratitude as small thoughts pass between them. Uraka understands why Dior is drawn to Liz, leaving Liz nervously chuckling. Liz muses quietly to herself about what could have been. Uraka imagines what she would do if Dior ever fell for her. She planned to become so beautiful he would regret it. She wanted him held accountable for her scar, but now she resolves to give up on him. She asks Liz to ensure her scar disappears completely. Liz enthusiastically promises that she will. The treatment proceeds successfully. Uraka marvels at the incredible results of the treatment. Uraka thanks Liz, amazed that no trace of the burn remains. Liz humbly attributes the medical success to Dr. Azoth. Uraka expresses deep gratitude after every doctor said the scar was permanent. She asks how she can properly thank Liz. Liz mentions that she is opening a magic tool shop. Liz declines formal thanks and asks if Uraka would visit her again. She reminisces about her childhood dream of becoming a magic tool artisan. She wants to follow in her grandmother's footsteps and bring joy to everyone. Uraka listens enthusiastically as Liz talks about making accessories and clothes for her, praising her talent and expressing full confidence in her dream. Uraka promises to visit her shop in the future, bringing along her boyfriend. Dior announces their arrival at their destination, while Liz vows to keep improving. She feels inspired to work harder than ever. Meanwhile, Dior stands quietly nearby in his regal uniform, listening to their conversation. He keeps a calm, composed expression as he looks on. Outside, their carriage horse patiently awaits the next move. Liz notices they have stopped far away from the mansion. She wonders if this stop is part of his official work duties since dinner is approaching. Dior confirms he needed to drop by an important location that is not work-related. He then teases her about how much she ate during tea earlier. Liz recognizes the private estate belonging to the Azoth family under the bright moonlight. Dior asks her if she finds the view pleasant. Liz asks why he brought her to this scenic spot. Dior acknowledges everything she accomplished for her family and the accident victims. He praises her effort and explains that he wanted to show his appreciation. He wanted to thank her in his own personal way. Liz gazes up at the breathtaking night sky with marvel. She admits she never had time to look at stars before moving into the mansion. This is the very first time she has seen a sky so stunning. Dior shares how he began learning magic after getting a stone set at her family shop. His talent sent him studying abroad at the Northern Magic Academy where he met Ferris. He hated the extreme northern cold and wanted to return home as quickly as possible. To escape it, he skipped grades and graduated early at age 15. Liz chuckles that the Ice Duke is actually sensitive to the cold. She notes that 15 is her current age and asks what he did next. Dior explains that he became a researcher at the Royal Academy. He admits he still holds the position despite being buried in endless paperwork. She marvels that he is actually opening up and talking about himself. Recalling quiet moments in this spot, Dick explains that he was overwhelmed as a researcher during the war, fondly recalling how the starry sky looked like magic stones on black velvet. Liz looks at Dior quietly as he reflects on his past memories. He then remarks that Ferris would love running around in a place like this. Liz thanks Lord Dior for opening up and sharing his thoughts with her. He mentions that he never brought Ferris here because the creature lacks emotion. Liz laughs softly at his dry observation. She smiles warmly and adds how glad she is to get to know him better. Liz boldly declares her dream to become a great magic tool artisan too. Dior looks at Liz, calling her name quietly. He hesitates for a second as he prepares to speak. Instead, Liz blurts out a proposal to call off their engagement. Dior is completely taken aback by her sudden words. A side banner displays the title Duke of Broken Engagements. Dior asks why she is bringing this up and wonders if she is overthinking again. Liz quickly clarifies that she isn't making foolish assumptions about living in different worlds. She admits to causing trouble, but insists this decision comes from a positive place. She explains that crafting Selkie skin made her realize her true capability. Just as Dior always said, she recognizes her genuine talent as a magic tool artisan. Dior pauses, waiting for her to continue. Liz emphasizes that talent alone isn't enough to stand on her own feet. She needs to build a solid foundation for her life to become truly independent. Without that independence, she can never run her own shop or achieve her true dream. Dior counters that she does not need to break off their engagement to achieve independence. He points out that while the threat from her family is gone, she still needs his support. Liz looks away softly, admitting that there is more to her decision than just that. She admits that as she is now, she is far too immature to be a good match for him. She acknowledges his incredible magical prowess, though she knows his true kindness, calling him her hero for every time he rescued her. Liz looks at him earnestly as she continues to pour out her heart. She suggests that someone as wonderful as Uraka is far better suited for him, even in a fake engagement. However, Liz vows to become a woman worthy of standing by his side in the future. She holds on to the quiet hope that that day will eventually come. She asks if he might still need a woman-repellent fiancé once she matures in appearance and character. Liz earnestly begs him to consider getting engaged to her once more when that time comes. Dior calls her an idiot, but Liz cheerfully agrees while pledging to become truly independent. He counters that no person is ever truly perfect. He explains that couples exist to balance out each other's flaws and offer mutual support. He adds that this was the lesson taught by his brother and sister-in-law, surprising Liz. Dior points out her clumsy nature and poor independence. Yet he lists how much she loves food and how deeply she gets absorbed in her crafting. He notes even her tendency to push herself too hard. Liz tries to interject, but Dior continues sharing his heart. Dior softly admits that he finds every single one of those quirks endearing. He explains that he actually enjoys taking care of people and wants to support her. Holding her hand gently, he asks if she finally understands his true intentions. Dior pauses, looking intently into her eyes as he prepares to make his final confession. He clearly tells Liz that he simply wants to be with her. Stunned, she hesitantly lists her shortcomings like lacking etiquette, but he warmly brushes off her worries by promising he has plenty of money to feed her. They sit together under the quiet starlit sky. When she worries about staying up all night crafting, he lightly scolds her but urges her to stay by his side, assuring her she is cuter than any noble lady. Dior smiles down at her, gently asking if she has any more excuses left. Tears well up in Liz's eyes as she finally realizes her true feelings and declares that she wants to be with Lord Dior. She begs him to let her remain his fiancé, realizing just how much he means to her. As Dior holds her close in a warm embrace, Liz acknowledges that he has become truly irreplaceable to her. Liz walks through the bustling town street alongside Dior under a bright sky. Onlookers gush about how lovely the couple looks, admiring Dior's striking, handsome appearance. Liz begins to feel a growing sense of self-consciousness amidst the surrounding whispers. She suddenly realizes that they are drawing an overwhelming amount of public attention. Dior holds an umbrella over Liz, guiding her protectively through the lively street. Back at the magic tool shop, Pierre addresses Kurumi while preparing to clean up. Pierre thanks everyone warmly for helping clean and organize the shop before opening. Kurumi cheerfully responds that assisting around the shop is no trouble at all. Liz shifts the conversation towards something that has been weighing heavily on her mind. Kurumi clasps her hands together and swoons over how perfectly matched Liz and Dior are. Dior stands quietly as Liz looks up at him with a startled expression. Kurumi wonders if the glowing necklace on Dior's chest was a special present from Liz, leaving her stunned. Pierre watches quietly as the conversation about Liz's relationship deepens further. Pierre points out the golden bangle on Liz's wrist and ponders its deeper significance. Dior then brings up their formal engagement and states that he has one request for her. Liz stammers nervously, unsure of how to respond to Dior's unexpected topic. He gently places his hands on her shoulders as they gaze into each other's eyes. He asks her to craft a handmade necklace for him to wear, leaving her wondering why he wants one when he could easily buy it anywhere. Remaining silent for a moment as he holds her gaze, he calls her name softly and asks her to give him Rivière. Liz gasps in total confusion at his sudden and unexpected request. Dior offers to give her a family bangle in exchange for her gift. Dior holds out an ornate family heirloom bangle toward a startled Liz. Dior's name means golden, while Rivière represents a string of fine jewels. Exchanging these pieces is traditional code for declaring mutual romantic love. Dior explains that the heirloom bangle is a prestigious item whose size can be adjusted. Liz slowly processes what his gesture truly implies for their relationship. Kurumi teases Liz about engaging in a playful romantic game. Kurumi asks if she was envied by everyone on her way over. Flustered, Liz flailingly denies it, claiming the charm is only meant to ward off other women for Dior. Pierre watches quietly as she tries to defend herself. Liz announces that she needs to step out on a brief errand. She asks Pierre to handle things, and he calmly acknowledges her request. Liz pauses in the doorway as she prepares to speak to her companions. Liz calls out to Pierre and Kurumi to share an important realization. Liz reveals that she recently planned to break off her engagement with Dior. She confesses that her self-perceived immaturity made her feel unworthy of staying by his side. She felt that her actions were constantly causing unwanted trouble for everyone around her. Liz reflects on memories of everyone reaching out to support her in times of need. Liz recalls how everyone reached out to help her, realizing her doubts were foolish. Liz admits that thinking she was a burden was a selfish misunderstanding. She now understands that their support was rooted in genuine warmth and kindness. Pierre and Kurumi listen attentively as Liz speaks her heart out to them. Pierre listens softly as Liz continues to voice her true feelings. Liz shares how Dior opened up to her about his past struggles. She declares her heart's desire to stay with Dior and everyone at the mansion. Learning that even a brilliant sorcerer like Dior worked tirelessly in his school days inspires her to do the same. Driven by that inspiration, she resolves to learn and become a magnificent magic tool artisan. She explains her intention to work hard at the shop to become a worthy fiancé for him, leading to a special request for her companions. She asks them to teach her how to behave like a true noble lady at the mansion. Kurumi listens closely with an emotional expression as Liz finishes speaking. The servants react with delight to her enthusiastic request. They mention noticing her past worries and how she resolved them alongside Dior. Gladly, they promise to help her transform into a wonderful noble lady. Pierre praises her, saying her success only proves how truly special she is. Kurumi adds that their master rarely confides in anyone or opens up about himself. Pierre acknowledges that Dior is indeed a very difficult person to deal with. Kurumi agrees while Pierre emphasizes that only Liz can handle his personality. They point out that she is the only person Dior smiles at so gently. Because of that, Pierre requests she continue bearing with their eccentric master. Liz reflects on how that evening made her view Dior as someone truly special. She felt thrilled when he stated his wish to remain together, making her heart flutter. She realizes this intense feeling differs completely from her cozy warmth toward Kurumi and Pierre. Pondering these new emotions, Liz softly greets Dior as she encounters him outside. Dior looks back at her with a quiet glance. Liz wonders why she has been called to the Great Hall. Dior inquires about the gathering and Liz explains that it is time for dance practice. Kurumi explains that Liz has been practicing her noble etiquette and would love Dior as a partner. Pierre dryly notes that Fariris wandered in on his own. Dior tells Liz she shouldn't force herself to change just for their engagement. Liz immediately objects, determined to continue. Insisting she is not forcing herself, she turns to him and asks if he would like to dance. He stands tall and reaches his hand out toward her. He sighs softly while taking a moment to compose himself. Liz trips slightly as they begin to move together. Dyer teasingly scolds her for turning the wrong way during the step. Dior reassures her as she stumbles and apologizes for stepping on his foot. He takes full control of the dance to pull her close, startling her. Dior leads her smoothly across the floor with complete grace. He glances at her softly, showing her how easily they recovered. They execute a breathtaking dip at the climax of their dance. Liz blushes deeply as she gazes up into his eyes. Fariris enthusiastically praises his master's dancing skills from the sideline. The onlookers compliment Liz while dragging away an overly excited Fariris as Dior gently asks her how she felt. Dior holds her close and softly asks if she now believes she can become a fine noble lady. She smiles softly with bright eyes filled with newfound hope. She enthusiastically promises to do her absolute best, knowing in her heart that she truly loves this place. Liz joyfully announces that after taking things one step at a time, her family shop, Riviere Magical Tools, is finally open. Dior offers his calm congratulations while presenting her with a bouquet of flowers. Dior offers to order even more flowers if needed. Liz quickly thanks Lord Dior, saying she has already received so many. Dior notes that hours have passed since opening without a single customer entering. Liz admits that she overheard worrying rumors while tidying up outside with Kurumi. Passers-by outside whisper among themselves while looking back at the shop's sign. Townspeople gossip about the shop reopening despite its past owner defaulting on debts and fleeing. Liz quietly acknowledges that the bad rumors are mostly true. Liz mentions settling the shop's debts. Dior suggests contacting previous regular customers to announce the grand reopening. Liz resolves to rebuild trust step by step, just as a bell rings at the entrance. An older gentleman steps inside asking if the shop is still in business, and Liz warmly welcomes him. Kurumi and Dior enthusiastically greet their very first customer, making him slightly flustered. Dior intently asks the man what kind of service he is seeking today. The man holds up a pocket watch and demands answers about a previous repair. He complains that the watch he brought in last month was not fixed properly at all. Liz apologizes sincerely and gently asks if she can inspect the faulty device. Examining the mechanism, Liz realizes her father had replaced the original magic stone with a low-quality one. Liz reflects on how her father struggled after her departure. She asks the customer for 5 minutes to fix it. Liz works delicately inside the open pocket watch mechanism with her tools. Liz hands the restored pocket watch back to the customer with a polite smile. She explains that impurities in the previous magic stone disrupted the flow of magic and threw off its timing. Liz details how she replaced the stone and worn gears, fine-tuning the daily error margin to under 5 seconds. Checking the ticking watch carefully, the customer nods in deep satisfaction. The elderly customer praises the shop, explaining his watch was original crafted by the former owner. He realizes Liz was the real artisan behind it all along. He notes the repair quality never wavered over the years. He assumed the master did the repairs. Liz eagerly confirms she worked behind the scenes. The customer bluntly adds that her customer service is dreadful. Liz panics, remembering she was never taught customer etiquette. She tries to compose herself and apologizes profusely to the elderly man. The satisfied customer apologizes for yelling and promises to return. Liz thanks him enthusiastically as he leaves, then looks over at Dior. She repeats happily that the man promised to come back. Dior confirms he heard, while Liz beams with joy over her successful interaction. Liz reflects softly on how meaningful this moment feels for her. Liz admits she never knew hearing a customer say they will return would make her so happy. She was always cooped up in the atelier. Now she has finally met a customer who truly needs her magic tools. Dior agrees with her gentle expression. He assures her she will be thanked thousands of times in the future. He promises to stay by her side and see it all through. Liz brightens up completely, full of motivation. Excitedly, Liz decides to invite Kurumi along to buy parchment for letters. Dior nods in approval. She enthusiastically heads outside for her errand. A grand royal palace rises in the distance under bright sunlight. Princess Marguerite pleads earnestly to visit Riviere Magical Tools. Her attendant flatly refuses her request. He insists she order by letter using a pseudonym. Marguerite gazes fondly at her Artemisia dresses. She confesses she has always loved their design. She is amazed they were crafted by Liz, the ghost artificer, and desperately wants to meet her. Her attendant questions her choice, reminding her how unique her past orders were. He notes royal garments must strictly come from traditional prestigious shops. Her attendant warns that visiting a common tool shop poses severe security risks for a royal princess. Princess Marguerite understands concern and gratefully acknowledges how much he always looks out for her. She apologizes for her selfish wish and relents, relieving her attendant. She steps through the grand castle doors in her elaborate heavy gown. Sighing deeply, Princess Marguerite laments how dull royal life truly feels. Despite the restrictions, she remains determined to visit the magic tool shop one day. She resolves that with the right help, she will surely make her wish come true. Her thoughts drift toward the royal balcony overlooking the vast kingdom. Meanwhile, back at the shop, someone calls out to Liz as she cheerfully responds. Kurumi politely interrupts their chat and Liz warmly offers her some sweets. Kurumi announces a new letter for Liz while another maid eagerly digs into the snacks. Liz excitedly notes that the mail comes from Lady Margarita, a regular customer. She eager opens the envelope to read its contents aloud. The letter expresses extreme joy at the shop's reopening and requests a custom dress. Liz happily informs Dior about the new order, thanking him for his good advice. She reads through the elaborate, passionate handwriting on the letter. Reading further, Liz realizes the client asks for very strict, long-hemmed formal court attire. The letter specifies that the request is for an extremely formal court gown. Liz notes how formal the phrasing is, guessing the sender is high nobility. The writer asks if magic tools can lighten the gown's suffocating weight despite previous shop refusals. Liz ponders how to craft a light, comfortable formal dress for her distinguished client. Lionel asks Dior how people manage to walk in long-hemmed dresses without tripping. He notes that despite coming from a matriarchal family, he has never worn a dress himself. However, Lionel recalls a technique his grandmother once mentioned to him. She explained that ladies elegantly manage their hems by quickly kicking them under as they walk. Liz listens in awe, realizing how much effort noble ladies must exert. The view opens onto the peaceful town outside the estate window. Liz sketches various dress designs and magic formula ideas at her desk. She considers adding a magic formula to lighten the hem, but fears it might accidentally lift up. Realizing that even a one-in-a-million accident is unacceptable, Liz hits a roadblock in her design. Kurumi enters the room carrying a tray of hot drinks and sweet treats. Liz worries about the disaster if the magic failed during a dance. Kurumi kindly hands her a warm chocolate drink to offer her a relaxing break. Kurumi presents the sweet hot chocolate and cookies, encouraging Liz to recharge her tired mind. Liz reaches out eagerly to take one of the crisp cookies from the dish. Determined not to fail this crucial request, Liz vows to research further after grabbing a quick snack. Taking a bite, she swoons over the cookie's perfectly crisp texture and rich, savory flavor. Liz praises the incredible taste and asks Kurumi if she baked them herself, but Kurumi denies it. Kurumi explains she bought them from a nearby patisserie, delighting Liz with the news of a local shop. Liz admits she never noticed the shop before because she was always working non-stop. She excitedly resolves to visit the patisserie herself the next time she gets a moment. The sun shines brightly over the grand exterior of the local patisserie fontaine. A close view shows the shop's charming decorative entrance and display windows. At the entrance, a mysterious hooded figure stands silently near the doorway. The cloaked individual pauses in the quiet hallway of the building. A brief note promises that Liz's next fateful encounter is just around the corner. A customer marveling at a mop that moves entirely on its own. She explains that the mop can be set to clean while people are away using a basic magic stone. As a busy worker praises its convenience, Liz reassures her that the product is made precisely for people in her situation. The customer eagerly buys one and Kurumi thanks her warmly. Kurumi happily reports that returning regular customers are praising the new creations, calling Liz an absolute genius. She notes that despite serving a famous alchemist family, she has never seen magic tools keep a shop so spotless. While Kurumi admires her talent, Liz humbly credits her housework skills while harboring a quiet thought. She admits to having been curious about something for a little while. Liz points toward a moving tub and begins to explain its purpose. She reveals it is a set designed for fully automatic laundry. Kurumi gasps in utter astonishment at the idea of automatic washing. Liz giggles and explains that simply tossing clothes in lets the tub wash them, even if hand washing remains superior. She claims it is good enough for ordinary fabrics, leaving Kurumi worshipping her as a goddess of housework. Kurumi declares that such everyday convenience is worth more than precious gems. Liz agrees wholeheartedly, wishing to make everyday magic tools accessible to everyone. From helpful household devices to comfortable clothing, Liz believes spreading convenient creations will improve countless lives. She thinks of busy workers and those suffering from illness. Liz vows to invent tools that bring joy and prosperity into people's daily routines. She resolves firmly to keep creating a wide variety of magic tools. Dior steps in, advising that they must first apply for patents at the Toolmakers Association. Liz stares back at him with a blank, confused look. Dior sighs in disbelief, realizing she has no idea what a patent even is. Liz asks tentatively if registering means announcing her status as an inventor. Dior confirms that in simple terms, that is exactly what it means. Patent applications usually go through separate specialized guilds for each item type. He notes her utter confusion regarding how various trade associations operate. She admits her parents handled all administrative matters in the past. He offers to explain the process, detailing how magic toolmakers handle diverse creations. He outlines how individual guilds manage patents and why a central association's consolidating them. She listens carefully as he breaks down the complicated system for her. Dior transitions to the main reason patents are so crucial. He warns that without patents, others can copy her inventions and profit from them. He emphasizes how important it is to secure her rights properly. Liz wonders if similar products coming out naturally isn't just standard practice. Dior interrupts to explain the crucial legal difference. He explains that registering as the rights holder guarantees her a percentage of all sales. If anyone copies her work, a portion of their profits must be returned to her. She gasps in total shock at learning how royalties actually work. Liz realizes with shock that she could have earned royalties on past inventions. Dior confirms her realization without hesitation. She suddenly deduces that her family shop was actually generating massive profits. She feels completely deceived about her past earnings and laments not asking for better food. Dior agrees that her shop was likely making a fortune. He urges her to apply immediately, emphasizing the necessity of patents. She nods along, thoroughly convinced. Liz groans that she is terrible at paperwork, earning a swift scolding from Dior. Pierre offers his assistance with the administrative workload. Pierre mentions he is secretly investigating illicit magic activities, regretting he cannot do more. Liz quickly insists he shouldn't strain himself on her account. Dior blunt points out she would never finish the paperwork on her own. He advises registering what she can now and hiring an assistant for the remainder. She readily agrees that finding extra help is the best path forward. Liz notes that Kurumi and Pierre already help out despite their busy mansion duties. Dior nods in agreement with her assessment. He predicts she will become a legendary artisan, making a job listing essential. He insists she needs to learn how to manage employees proper. She reacts nervously to the grand prospect of managing people. Dior advises her to hire a woman she gets along with for long-term work. He firmly adds that hiring a man is completely out of the question. He warns that delay will swamp her in paperwork and ruin her crafting time. Terrified by that prospect, she enthusiastically vows to start searching immediately. She puts up a help-wanted poster between tasks, praying to find a nice assistant. Liz decides it is time to take a small break from her work. She thinks about brewing some tea that Kurumi brought for her. She opens the container expecting to grab one of her usual cookies. She gasps in shock upon discovering that the cookie tin is completely empty. Liz immediately heads outside and walks down the town street. She approaches a grand bakery building in the city center. Liz admits she left her shop completely unattended just to buy cookies. She blames the irresistible taste of the treats for making her abandon her post. When Liz tries the handle, she discovers the bakery door is locked tight. She notices a sign announcing that the shop will be closed briefly. Devastated, she breaks down in tears over losing her chance at cookies. A calm, gentle voice calls out behind her asking if she is all right. A strikingly beautiful dark-haired woman asks if she is feeling unwell. She gently notes how intensely the girl is weeping. Liz looks up, completely awestruck by the stranger's stunning appearance. Liz stammers that she is fine and was just shocked by the sudden closure. She explains that she used to buy cookies from this shop every single day. The woman chuckles softly and apologizes for unintentionally causing her disappointment. She invites Liz to join her for a shopping trip to another bakery. She promises that her recommended spot serves truly delicious baked sweets. Liz reacts with bright excitement at the offer of more treats. Liz pauses as she remembers her responsibilities back at her own shop. Liz hesitates, admitting that she would love to go along. However, she explains that she must return to mind her own store. She promises to revisit the bakery once it opens again, which the woman accepts with understanding. Liz thanks the kind stranger for talking with her and checking on her. Liz bids a cheerful farewell before turning around and hurrying off. The beautiful woman watches her depart with a thoughtful, quiet expression. The elegant woman stares after Liz as the girl runs back toward her store. Liz wonders to herself where that shop with the delicious baked sweets was located. She second-guesses her decision not to let the woman take her there, despite her intense curiosity. Suddenly, the shop door chime rings, announcing a visitor who startles Liz with a greeting. The mysterious noble lady stands gracefully before Liz inside the shop. The visitor asks what is wrong as Liz points in surprise at the treats. Liz gasps in amazement as the elegant young woman presents a box full of her favorite treats. The visitor explains that she brought these cookies, financiers, and cannelés specifically for Liz. Overjoyed, Liz wonders if she can really keep them all. The noble lady confirms it, expressing her genuine relief at finding her. Liz thanks her politely before curiously asking how she managed to track down her shop location. The visitor explains that she asked the neighboring shopkeeper about the girl who visits every day. She adds that she narrowed her search to shops nearby based on Liz's demeanor and walking habits. The visitor details how she deduced Liz was a craftswoman from her calloused hands and fine outfit. She observed that Liz was not wearing gloves despite her high-quality clothing. Deducting that silk gloves would hinder manual work, she asked around neighboring shops until she identified her. The dark-haired noble reveals that her search led her right to Liz of Riviere Magical Tools. Astonished, Liz marvels at how incredibly smart and spot-on her deductive reasoning is. The visitor modestly brushes off the compliment, saying it was nothing special. She introduces herself formally as the daughter belonging to the esteemed house of Baron Agnes. Impressed by her elegance, Liz introduces herself in return as Liz Louise. Liz expresses her delight and happiness at becoming acquainted with such a beautiful noble lady. The young noble's expression darkens as she quietly remarks that nobility is nothing special. She wistfully adds that working hard for everyone's sake like Liz does is far more wonderful. Liz looks up with a soft, thoughtful gaze after hearing the noble lady's heartfelt words. To brighten the mood, Liz warmly invites her new guest to sit down and join her for tea. Agnes agrees to break off the engagement without any objection, though Jimin asks if she is truly certain. She questions whether Jimin's parents were eager for him to marry into a baronial family. She notes that since he and Lady Emma are in love, his parents will surely bless them. Jimin reacts in shock when Agnes points out that his marriage will now be between two commoners. She hands over a birth certificate to prove her claims. Jimin stares in shock as the document confirms the truth. Agnes reveals that Lady Emma was never born into a count's family. Terrified, Jimin begs to pretend the breakup never happened and start over. She repeats the cruel insults he previously threw at her about her hair and personality. Agnes asks him if he really thought he could insult a lawyer's daughter without consequences. Jimin groans in defeat as she stands triumphant. She turns around and prepares to walk out of the room. Outside, officers interrupt the shopkeeper as Hospitaller Deer enters the noisy shop. Agnes bids farewell, stating she will properly explain their broken engagement to her father. She leaves Jimin slumped over in despair. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper shouts in anger as inspectors barge in based on an informant's report. Hospitaller Dior looks on with a stern and cold expression. Dior gives the order to seize everything inside the store. The workers protest, but Dior accuses them of developing illegal magical spices to hide drugs. Dior warns them that this is a capital crime and threatens to shut them down immediately. Spices that alter taste are strictly prohibited because they can conceal spoiled food or poison. An officer reminds the shopkeeper and workers that they should already know the law. The angry shopkeeper demands to see a warrant for their raid. The inspector scolds him to know his place before revealing the high authority present. Meanwhile, back at the raid, Hospitaller Dior confronts the illegal shopkeeper with unyielding authority. He stands resolute as inspectors secure the area, pressing for a full confession. The captured shopkeeper gasps in terror upon recognizing the crest of Duke Dior Hospitaller from the renowned Azoth family. An officer demands a full confession, warning that they are acting directly under royal orders. Back at Riviere Magical Tools, Liz squeals with delight at the mouth-watering spread of baked treats before her. A close-up reveals an array of delicately baked pastries arranged beautifully on a plate. Liz gushes over how amazing the previous sweets tasted, especially praising the moist interior of the cannelé. Agnes smiles, explaining that the assortment came from Oubli Convent and offering more treats she brought along. Delighted by her guest's generosity, Liz eagerly urges Agnes to take a seat while she prepares tea. From that day on, Agnes became a frequent visitor, and the two quickly grew into close friends who shared quiet tea times together. Today, Agnes presents her latest gift as a special celebration. Liz giggles softly, wondering what wonderful news Agnes has to celebrate. As Liz offers sugar for the tea, Agnes calmly reveals that she just broke off her engagement with her unfaithful fiancé. Shocked by the news, Liz asks if she is alright after such a narrow escape. Agnes reassures her that everything is settled, though she feels she owes Liz an apology. Liz tilts her head in confusion as Agnes reveals her ex-fiancé was the son of her favorite patisserie shopkeeper. She explains that the shop will likely shut down completely to pay for her compensation. Liz gasps in sudden realization as the dots finally connect. She realizes that was why Agnes was standing outside the bakery earlier that day. Liz reassures Agnes that none of this is her fault, firmly stating that cheating is entirely unforgivable. Agnes looks relieved, expressing how much it comforts her to hear Liz say that. Liz warmly encourages Agnes to enjoy the tea before it gets cold, and her friend gladly agrees. A close-up highlights a delicious tart filled with sweet custard and generous apricot slices. Liz marvels at the stunning array of pastries laid out before her. She savors a bite, declaring the blend of sweet and sour flavors absolutely delicious. Liz raves about how the thick apricot chunks complement the rich custard cream perfectly. Agnes watches with a smile, amused by how passionately Liz enjoys her food. Agnes hands over a sheet of paper, explaining she obtained the recipe for the cookies Liz liked as part of her compensation. Remembering that Liz wanted to try baking them, Agnes presents it as a gift, leaving Liz pleasantly surprised. Liz asks in disbelief if she can really keep it, overjoyed at the thought of recreating those favorite cookies. Agnes sighs softly, assuming her family will likely push her into another arranged match soon anyway. Liz sympathizes with how difficult noble life can be, while Agnes wishes people were simply allowed to marry for love. Agnes expresses relief at making a clean break from her cheating ex-fiancé, admitting she is completely exhausted by formal engagements. For now, she looks forward to enjoying a moment of peaceful calm. Liz asks Agnes if she has someone special in her life. Agnes expresses her frustration with high society, wishing she could give up noble expectations and run a shop as a commoner. She turns the question back onto Liz, asking about her romantic situation. Liz blushes as Agnes points out that she must have someone special in mind. A brief glimpse of an advertisement poster is shown. Liz remembers her urgent search for help with paperwork. Liz pulls out a job poster for a paperwork assistant, explaining how Dior scolds her when she gets overwhelmed. Agnes casually sips tea while listening to her dilemma. Agnes clarifies if Liz specifically wants a female legal assistant. She then offers herself for the position. Agnes pauses before elaborating on her qualifications. Liz excitedly asks if she can really do the job, and Agnes mentions she knows the legal basics. Agnes explains that old superstitions prevent many women from becoming legal professionals. She shares that her family is a line of lawyers, though she lacks official notary certification herself. Liz eagerly accepts her offer despite the lack of certification, making Agnes smile in agreement. Later that night, Liz feels thrilled that Agnes is joining her until a knock interrupts her thoughts. She answers expecting Kurumi at the door. Dior enters instead and strictly orders her to go to bed. He explains that he noticed her room light on late, catching her off guard. Dior sternly reminds her of his rule about sleep, forcing Liz to apologize profusely. Dior stares down at Liz with an unyielding expression. When Liz tries to make excuses about reading a grimoire, Dior cuts her off and commands her to sleep. She mentions her calculations for a commission dress, but Dior refuses to hear any arguments. A small grimoire falls onto the bed as Liz relents. Liz tumbles onto her bed completely exhausted. Dior sighs in exasperation at her stubbornness. He offers to stay beside her if she cannot sleep, calling her a stubborn girl with fond affection. Dior leans in with a gentle smile and promises to help her fall asleep himself. Liz panics in bed as Dior calmly sits right beside her. Liz stammers out a desperate refusal at the grand estate that night. Dior begins reading off dry legal documents and writes to help her rest. Liz quickly drifts off into a deep slumber beside him. He chuckles softly at how fast she fell asleep. He notes that anything boring puts her out in 30 seconds. Agnes officially begins working at the shop alongside Liz. Liz is deeply impressed by how efficient and capable Agnes is with the paperwork. She marvels at her friend's sharp intellect and praises her assistance. Agnes humbly thanks her and notes that smart people shouldn't put off tasks until the deadline. She admits she had been delaying the filing, but Liz reassures her that they made it just in time. The guild official reviews their neat documentation and formally approves their patent application. A satisfied customer purchases an item, leaving Liz thrilled by the praise and eager to share the success with Dior. Looking at the shop's growing prosperity, she wonders if things are going almost too smoothly. She looks down at a guidebook listing top capital dining establishments. She suddenly remembers an unfulfilled obligation. She realizes she still hasn't treated Dior to the meal she promised him. With Agnes handling the administrative load part-time, Liz finally finds spare moments in her routine. She excitedly decides to start searching for a suitable place to take Dior out. However, she quickly runs into a fundamental problem regarding his personal preferences. She ponders in confusion over what his favorite food could possibly be. Dior sits silently across from her at a lavish dining table. The servant offers extra helpings to Liz while Dior quiet tells her to inform the chef if she wants more. Liz gazes happily at her freshly served plate. She enjoys the meal immensely while the staff presents the sea bream couscous course. She praises the delicious fish, delighting the attending staff. Liz continues gushing over how flavorful the fish broth pasta is. She notices that Dior looks unimpressed and only sips his wine despite the high quality of the food. She gathers her courage and directly asks him what his favorite dish is. Dior nonchalantly replies that he will eat anything, cutting the conversation short and leaving her dumbfounded. The maid steps forward to clarify Dior's true meaning. Anne explains that Dior means he will gladly accept any meal invitation from Liz without hesitation. Liz accepts the explanation but still wants to figure out what he truly enjoys eating. Liz rephrases her question, asking him about the most delicious thing he has ever tasted. Dior pauses and answers that it was coffee, surprising her. He recalls a past journey to an extraordinarily freezing land where breath instantly turned to ice. Dior fondly remembers drinking hot coffee in the snow. He describes a rich, boiling coffee sweetened with egg yolk and sugar that he had in the place where he first met Ferreris. Though he normally avoids sweet things, his freezing body craved the rich warmth. Liz wonders if that unique dessert-like coffee recipe belongs to that distant region. Dior praises the unforgettable taste of the coffee. Liz lights up with excitement, eager to recreate that perfect brew. She gazes into her mirror while pondering her next idea. Her mind continues to race with new possibilities. Liz realizes Dior enjoyed the beverage specifically because of the freezing environment. She worries he won't enjoy sweet drinks in normal weather. The bitter cold made that particular cup special to him. As Kurumi checks in on her, Liz suddenly gets a bright idea. She considers building a dedicated cold room for coffee tasting. Liz plans her new magical invention with enthusiasm. Liz proposes using cold air magical tools to recreate the frozen lands indoors. Kurumi agrees since traveling north is impossible right now. Kurumi suggests serving coffee late at night or at dawn instead. Liz worries late coffee will disrupt Dior's sleep. Kurumi encourages her to pursue her creative experiment regardless. Liz worries morning coffee might upset his stomach. Kurumi addresses her young mistress gently. Kurumi offers heartfelt support for Liz's plans. Kurumi urges Liz to follow her heart and create freely. She explains that Liz's desire to entertain Dior will bring him true joy. Liz promises to do her absolute best. Ferris reminisces about his snowy northern homeland. Ferreris paints a vivid picture of the harsh climate. The cold northern landscapes come to life in their conversation. Ferris describes how Dior wore heavy layers against relentless snow. His swollen hands needed warming, leaving Liz shocked by the extreme cold. Liz finds it hard to imagine such intense freezing weather. Liz asks Ferris to assist her in building the prototype cold room. Anne approaches Dior with news about Liz's activities. Dior asks what Anne is referring to regarding Ferreris. Anne reports that Liz and Ferreris are running secret experiments together. Dior remains unbothered, allowing Liz to do whatever she wishes. Anne warns that the wolf spirit ate Liz's food and slept beside her. Dior casually notes that he is just a dog and he has slept beside Liz too. Anne stresses that Ferreris is a smart spirit who understands humans. Dior dismisses any impropriety but admits he is curious about their experiment. Someone instructs an ally to keep a close eye on the situation due to a bad feeling. The exterior of a quiet stone building sits surrounded by lush greenery. Scattered magic stones and components lay resting across the grassy ground outside. Liz channels her magic power to activate the cold air generator device. Building a cold air generator requires dried monster organs infused with magic to create water attribute stones. The simple setup functions as a basic spellcasting device. The mechanism works, though Ferris complains that it still feels a bit too hot. Liz offers to raise the output, and Ferris agrees that the bucket water must freeze. Liz pushes the magical generator all the way to its maximum power output. Frost instantly spreads across the room as the freezing blast takes effect. Liz feels delightfully energetic at first. She suddenly realizes how freezing cold it actually is. Ferris shouts out in shock at the extreme temperature drop. Ferris reminisces fondly about his snowy homeland and wishes to return there someday with his companions. Liz shivers uncontrollably as the freezing room continues to numb her entire body. Ferris promises to take her along, and a shivering Liz happily agrees to go with him. Liz and Ferris endure the freezing chill while standing together in the frosty room. Frost thickens across the air as the temperature drops dangerously low. Liz's eyes begin to lose focus as severe hypothermia sets. Ferris calls out to Liz while describing the beautiful auroras of his homeland. Liz notices her vision growing increasingly blurry and unfocused. Liz mistakenly assumes she grew used to the cold before collapsing unconscious onto the floor. Ferris panics in alarm as she suddenly faints. Liz slowly opens her eyes after having passed out from the extreme cold. Her blurred vision gradually clears to reveal a familiar face watching over her. Dior greets Liz with relief as she regains consciousness. Meanwhile, Ferris cries out in joy seeing her wake up safely. Liz bursts into tears as she hugs Dior tight. She cries out in relief that he is alive. Meanwhile, Dior asks if she was creating an ice laboratory. He asks why she did not ask him for help. He explains that ice and water are his specialty. Liz looks down and quietly apologizes. Dior glares sternly at Ferris. Dior notes that Ferris is a powerful spirit without a grasp of human temperature limits. Ferris begs him not to scold Liz. The spirit admits he got carried away and offers a sincere apology. Dior warns that Liz was on the verge of freezing to death. He tells Ferris to reflect on his actions, leaving the spirit weeping loudly. Liz jumps in to defend the spirit, insisting it was her fault for asking him. Ferris pleads for Dior to scold him instead, deeply moved by Liz's defense. The two tearfully call out each other's names in dramatic solidarity. Dior watches in bewilderment as Kurumi whispers that they are using him to bond. Turning back to Liz, Dior demands a proper explanation for building a laboratory. Liz stammers nervously, insisting she was not plotting anything grand. She reveals she was trying to recreate Northern coffee that he had mentioned before. Dior pauses in surprise at her innocent motivation. Dior sighs in disbelief at how far things escalated. Liz admits she simply wanted him to enjoy delicious coffee. Kurumi steps in, pointing out that Dior is partly to blame for giving such an extravagant preference. She adds that Liz is a genius who attempts what no one else would. She scolds Dior for being too soft on her. Dior mutters that he never expected Liz to go to such extremes. He softens his gaze in gentle tone, accepting her reason. Dior gratefully accepts her sentiment, but orders her to end this dangerous experiment immediately. Liz gasps in disbelief when Dior shuts down her idea. Dior looks at her with a gentle but firm expression. Dior points out that almost nobody actually enjoys that level of extreme freezing. Liz protests that her experiment is nearly finished anyway. He firmly cancels it because he dislikes the cold, leaving Ferris utterly devastated. Instead, he proposes a practical alternative for the upcoming winter season. Dior promises to build her a cozy snow house once the snow piles up, offering to share coffee inside it together. Liz lights up with excitement at the thought of a house made of snow. Dior explains that it is a clever northern traditional structure that stays surprisingly warm inside. Ferris recognizes the snow hut and cheers, while Pierre immediately enlists Kurumi's help to build it later. With that, the cold coffee commotion comes to a peaceful end as everyone looks forward to winter. Meanwhile, Liz sighs that she still has not properly served Dior anything good and vows to practice normal coffee brewing. Liz greets a visitor arriving at her shop. Dior visits Liz's atelier with tea sweets and she warmly invites him inside. Dior marvels at the items around the workshop. He praises the purity of her magic stones, which delights Liz. She explains her business strategy of selling leftover production scraps in cheap, popular bags. Liz shows off her best-selling glittering magic thread and playfully proposes making custom sleeves for Dior. Dior ponders her request thoughtfully. He notices how happy she looks pursuing her passion. Liz confirms her joy with a bright smile. She beams with satisfaction as they share the warm moment. Dior looks down at her with gentle affection. Dior suddenly notices someone else arriving at the shop. Liz welcomes Agnes, who greets Dior politely as a newcomer. Dior asks Agnes if she is a friend of Liz. Liz panics, internalizing that Dior has activated his possessive fiancé mode to ward off others. Dior firmly grabs hold of Liz. Agnes introduces herself as a shop employee and demands Dior release Liz. Dior questions Liz hiring help without consulting him, while Agnes firmly tells him to let Liz go. Dior sarcastically acknowledges Agnes while reprimanding Liz for not informing him first. Agnes stands her ground while Dior urges Liz to rely on him more. Agnes questions Dior's right to interfere in Liz's sole proprietorship, leaving Liz completely flustered. Liz excitedly introduces Agnes as a fourth-year student at the Magic Academy and her new shop employee. She then introduces Hospitalier Dior as her fiancé and the Duke of Hospitalier. Surprised, Agnes apologizes for her rudeness, admitting Liz had never mentioned having a fiancé. She formally presents herself as Agnes, the daughter of Baron Diamond. Dior acknowledges the introduction, recalling that Liz wanted help with administrative duties. He remarks that since they spend every night together, Liz should have mentioned hiring an assistant. Dior watches silently as Agnes responds to his intimate remark. Agnes points out that such physical closeness seems inappropriate for an engaged couple. She firmly questions their boundary. Liz reacts in awkward surprise. Dior casually pulls Liz close, arguing that being engaged leaves no room for concern. Skeptical Agnes directly asks Liz if Dior is genuinely her fiancé. Liz stammers nervously without giving a clear answer. She struggles to clarify their situation. Agnes questions whether the engagement was forced upon Liz or if it was her own choice. Liz tries to interrupt and explain. She reassures Agnes that nobody forced her into this agreement. Agnes looks intensely at Dior as she prepares to confront him. Liz trembles anxiously in the background as the confrontation escalates. Agnes criticizes Dior for carelessly discussing private matters that could damage Liz's honor. She promises to stand up for Liz against the Duke's authority. Liz panics at her boldness while Dior merely chuckles. Agnes demands to know why Dior finds the situation funny, questioning his moral character. Dior excuses his laugh and tells Liz that she has found a truly loyal friend. Liz happily agrees with his sentiment. Dior kisses Liz's cheek as he bids her goodbye until tonight. Dior closes the door behind him, leaving the two women alone. Agnes fumes over Dior's overly affectionate behavior and labels him terrible. She insists that Liz ought to break off her engagement immediately. Liz reacts with stunned silence. Liz gazes thoughtfully, reflecting on everything Agnes just said about Dior. Agnes waits attentively for Liz to answer her strong advice. Liz addresses Agnes, soft-spoken yet resolute. She reassures her friend that Dior is actually a very kind person. She reaffirms that he has always been gentle toward her. Liz reflects on how kind and strong Dior is. She recalls being comfortable with his touch before, but now her heart pounds at his gentle gaze and warm hand. Her mind swirls with memories of their intimate moments together. Dior begins to speak, leaving Liz breathless as she feels his warm presence. Agnes directly asks Liz if she is in love with the Duke. Flustered, Liz softly admits that she thinks she is. Agnes smiles, noting she cannot possibly object after seeing Liz's face. A lavish tea spread with various cakes and treats sits on the table. Agnes warmly promises to root for the two of them. Liz offers the pastries, explaining she bought too many because they looked delicious. Dior remarks on the large amount and asks if the tea sweets were insufficient. Liz sheepishly suggests that everyone can finish them together if they share. The peaceful garden pavilion stands quiet as they enjoy their tea. Liz becomes hyper-aware of how close Dior is standing. She brings out a dog-friendly cake for Reze, who proudly claims he can eat human food before accepting it anyway while Liz tries to maintain her composure. She offers Dior a cassis mousse since he dislikes overly sweet treats. He tries it and approves of its strong tart flavor. Dior praises her brewed coffee. Liz happily thanks him as he praises the harmony of flavors and pleasant aftertaste. She mentions practicing her coffee brewing recently to match his tastes. Liz details how she inscribed a cooling spell onto a water magic stone. She predicts the tool will be a huge hit for the upcoming warm season. Dior asks if there is ice inside, but Liz explains her invention cools drinks without diluting them. She adds that saving on expensive ice will let families afford meat and fish. Dior smiles, admiring her strong entrepreneurial mindset. He openly compliments her ingenuity. Dior offers her his dessert as a reward, making her heart flutter. Reze protests loudly when Dior gives the treat only to Liz. Dior dismisses the greedy wolf by pointing out his dog cake. Liz gleefully guards her cake while Reze begs her to share his master's affection. Liz smirks mischievously as she enjoys the extra slice. Liz casts a magic spell to spin a thread. Reze accuses Liz of cheating by using an invisibility spell. He shouts in utter frustration at her trickery. Liz disappears right in front of the startled beast. Reze desperately searches for Liz while she giggles in hiding. The mansion stands quietly bathed in the bright sunlight outside. Liz chuckles quietly to herself, pleased with her clever trick. Liz finishes the final cooling magic stone and decides to show it to Dior. Liz approaches the quiet hallway outside Dior's private room. Liz hears voices in the hallway and wonders if a customer is visiting. A woman says she will return later, startling Liz when she realizes a female guest is inside. Liz peeks nervously around the corner into the room. Liz remembers Dior said he was bad with women. She tries to convince herself it is work-related. Still, she cannot help feeling curious about who is inside. Dior tenderly kisses the hand of an elegant woman inside. Liz watches in total disbelief, shocked by what she just witnessed. Dior gazes warmly at the mysterious woman in front of him. Liz quietly steps back from the door in complete shock. Liz remembers Dior's unusually soft expression from earlier. Liz stands alone in the hallway, overwhelmed by her thoughts. Liz remembers how gently he smiled at her. He is normally so cold around women. She wonders what just happened between them. She wonders if that woman is someone special to him. A painful realization slowly dawns on her. Liz reflects solemnly that although she and Dior are engaged, they are not lovers.